Unfortunately for Odysseus, this is not the last time he saw this strait in this journey or even this chapter.
Damn.
He recounts further.
It's just, he suffers so much.
Yes.
He just, it's just, I'm sorry, it's taken me out. I really gotta reread the Odyssey at some point because holy shit, I forgot how bad it was for this guy. Odysseus says, "Nor had I seen the worst of it, for now the west wind dropped and a southeast gale came on. One more twist of the knife, taking me north again, straight for Charybdis."
Yep. Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going into uncharted waters as we explore the monstrous mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Book 2, The Sea of Monsters. Chapter 11, Clarisse blows up everything. Pretty descriptive title. You know what? I'm here for this chapter title. It's straight to the point. It tells you what's going to happen.
I was nodding along as you were saying the title. It's also perhaps the most apt one that we've had. This is just correct on many levels.
I've really been feeling like some of the ones this novel have been lacking. They felt like placeholders. This is not the most exciting or bombastic in any ways, but it is absolutely the only correct title for this chapter, I think.
I agree. I put a note that I feel like this was his first pass at a title name and was like, there, I don't need to change it.
Yeah, I only disagree with you, and we talked about this last episode, because We Hitch a Ride with Dead Confederates feels like it could have been the title for this chapter, and Rick was like, ooh, nah, it just has to be Clarisse blows up everything.
Uh-huh.
And then he was like, well, I guess we'll stick that on the Hydra chapter, and that's how you get the chapter with a monster donut and a Hydra having something completely unrelated to both of those as the title.
Yeah, that's fair.
But nonetheless, we pick up, as I just alluded to, after last time where Percy and Annabeth have been hiding out with Tyson in one of Annabeth and Luke and Thalia's old demigod hideaways. While they're there, Tyson stumbles into a monster donut, which they then are attacked by a Hydra that has been eating at said monster donut. And then that Hydra is blown up by Clarisse and her ship of dead Confederates, the CSS Birmingham. So we pick up right after a ship tour that Percy says they didn't want.
Fairly solid depiction of what an ironclad likely looked like inside. Check out the end of last episode if you're interested in ironclads and the role they served in the Civil War. But Percy describes it well. It's cramped, it's hot, and it sucks. Just generally speaking, it's not fun. Once again, we get ample proof that Rick is just flexing that he was a historian and a history teacher because he specifically says the type of cannons and artillery that were in this boat, which were Dahlgrens,
I
which
did
is
catch that.
100% correct. Just that's right on. As well as the Brook 9-inch rifled gun fore and aft. Again, I guess you could play this as Percy knows it because it's on a boat, but it
Yep.
definitely sticks out in comparison to the Percy who's usually confused by many things. To be like, ah, yes, here's all the technical terms. Unless maybe Clarisse is just like, that's what these are. Or Clarisse and Annabeth were like, that's what these are. Or potentially Clarisse, Annabeth, and Tyson, who's a mechanic, just being like, that's what these are.
I'm not going to lie to
And
you, Jack.
he's taking credit.
I think this might be the rare quadruple whammy. I think
Damn.
everyone on here has a reason to know this. Annabeth likes history, and specifically her dad is an expert in military history. Clarisse, at the very least, would know about it because war, and I would guess she knows the names of the guns because war. And Percy, it's a boat, and we know he can talk to boats. And Tyson, mechanic and son of Poseidon as well. It just makes sense. It all clicks. But that did beg a question for me, Jack. And I wrote it much later in the chapter when Percy's, like, actively trying to will the boat. Do you think because we know he could talk to boats, that this boat is racist?
I I I don't know that boats have desire and prejudice like people. I think they're a much more pure entity. I think their job is to float, and humanity has ruined that by strapping them with iron hulls and heavy weaponry.
Gotcha. So they put the Confederate on the boat, not in the boat.
Correct.
I
Exactly right.
understand.
More importantly, this is big because we guessed on this last chapter when the Hydra
Mhm.
just exploded into goo. We're like, do they just have celestial bronze shot?
Yep,
And they do! Confirmed right here. We now have I think this is the first instance of celestial bronze weaponry that isn't proper mythological or ancient
yep.
weapons.
And specifically, it's the first celestial bronze firearm of some kind. Would you consider a cannon a firearm?
I mean, it's artillery.
Artillery, that's a better word for it. I almost said that it was our first instance of celestial bronze ammunition, but that would be
Yeah,
inaccurate because we've talked about celestial bronze tipped arrowheads in the past.
that's true. Ammunitions for, we'll say, more modern conventional weapons. The semantics
Exactly.
aside, the people know what we mean. They're
Yeah,
blowing shit up with celestial bronze now.
and that's pretty cool. I'm
It
here for
is!
that.
This is really fucking neat. And I guess I forgot that it happened in this book because skipping ahead from part of my spotty memory for just the series as a whole, I remembered Annabeth's dad using, which I think you mentioned as
Yep.
well, celestial bronze bullets, which even as a child made me think, why aren't they just always using this? Why isn't that just the go-to?
Oh man, we have literally not made it past the first paragraph, but I'm about to continue to detour us because you're so right. And I loved when we first started D and Demigods. This was one
Mhm.
of the things that you specifically were like, Connor, I know, I know for a fact that celestial bronze bullets exist. So you are going to let me have a gun for my character. Jack,
Yeah.
son of Athena, is going to shoot celestial bronze bullets because why would I use anything else?
Dog, you've seen the kind of monsters we gotta go up against. I need to shoot them. Yeah, that's what everybody should be saying.
Yeah. Truly, you said it, and I was like, "Jack, that makes so much sense. I cannot tell you no to this." And so I didn't, but
Yeah.
you raise a very good point, and it does beg the question, are all of the campers at Camp Half-Blood just truly, like, that into the glory? Is the glory that important to them? Because that's the only reason to use, like, a sword, as opposed to the numerous other better weapons that history has come up with.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's, like, dishonorable?
I
I
give you
I don't know.
that.
Again, I feel like, you know, honor doesn't really fucking matter when you're being killed by monsters that wanna eat you, but
Yeah, the Colchis
maybe
Bulls
that's
didn't
just
give two
me.
shits about honor.
Right, exactly. But it's cool. A very neat concept that I wish Rick played with more is,
Mhm.
again, this melding of modern and myth, but for fighting.
Yeah,
Actual martial use.
the combat system.
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to think forward to, like, other novels, and no one ever is like, "Oh, man, and then I picked up my celestial bronze gun." That's disappointing. The most we get is Leo's quirky inventions, but Leo is more quirky and less deadly.
Yeah, he's not a gunsmith. He's not saying, "Hey, Percy, I want you to take this and shoot somebody with it." I
Yeah.
guess that does kind of defeat the whimsy that's being crafted in the world. But we're not here to worry about the whimsy, we're here to worry about the monsters. And
True.
to get us moderately back on track,
Of course.
we're gonna see fucking insane we're gonna see my entire point, my thesis is proved multiple times in this chapter.
Yeah,
Um, but we've gotta get there first. Percy is uncomfortable around all these dead Confederate sailors. Very fair for several
understandable. Yeah.
reasons. They are they're properly just zombies with ghostly visages over their slawed off faces. And they're being a bunch of Confederates. They
Yep.
like Annabeth because she's from Virginia. Virginia was the capital state of the Confederacy. And they said that they liked Percy because his last name is Jackson, like the Southern general, who we are, surprise, surprise, spoiler alert, going to have another ramblings from Cabin 6 at the end of this episode, a bit about Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson.
I look forward to it.
And then they say, "We actually fucking hate you because you're from New York and you're a Yankee, and we're a bunch of traitors, so we don't
Yep.
like you." Which is, interesting. Percy just kinda doesn't give a fuck, outside of being generally kind of perturbed by them. Tyson is terrified. He
Understandable.
is
He's a small
Yes!
child surrounded by zombies, and racist zombies at that.
Well, he's a large child surrounded by zombies.
Sure, he's, metaphorically speaking, he's a small child.
He is mentally a small child, but perhaps the most with his wits about him right now, because he is like, "Guys, this entire thing is a fucking powder keg. This is so dangerous, and
Yeah.
all of these soldiers are horrible." Not only are they horrible, Clarisse is horrible.
Yep.
Everything about this from top to bottom, inside and out, is not fun. And very sweetly, he keeps trying to hold Annabeth's hand because he's scared. And it doesn't say if Annabeth did or didn't do it, just that she doesn't look super thrilled about it. I choose to believe that she is holding his hand.
Oh, it says he insisted, and follows that immediately with the which she didn't look too thrilled about. That tells me Annabeth, for all of the shit that she's given Tyson and for all the shit we've given her for her racism over this, she's still Annabeth. She can't say no to him. Look at him. He's adorable.
Yeah. Her
Yeah.
little racist barrier is starting to melt.
Good. It's about
Slowly but
time.
surely. Who would have thought it would happen around a bunch of Confederates?
Oh no. I'm staring things in the face that I didn't want to confront right now. Do I need to change?
Am I the baddie? Yeah. But this is interesting. I don't know if it is a thing, but I would believe it. They go to the captain's quarters, which, it makes sense. It's a boat. A boat usually has some sort of captain's quarters,
Mhm.
and it is about the size of a walk-in closet, and they've got a little table set up. They've got a little board for planning, some linens and chinaware on the table. They've got, again, these are children. Sometimes it's hard to remember that with all this shit going on, they're still like 13 years old. They've got
Yeah.
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, potato chips, Dr. Pepper, specifically the superior soda.
I
And
have
I
no
it's
no horse in that race.
I know you specifically don't like pop, but I will say Dr. Pepper is on top, and I'm gonna stop from going down that tangent because I can feel myself getting pulled into it. But I found this interesting
Yep.
because I haven't watched the new season of Percy Jackson, and I haven't watched the first season since it came out, but I know you mentioned that Clarisse in the show is black,
Yep.
correct? And in the book, specifically, she is being served. I know in the book she's white, or at
Yep.
least I guess ambiguously without race, but presumably white.
No, she's described as white, I think.
Okay.
If it's not abundantly clear, the original character art is, and, like, we know that that was based on Rick's direct, even if for Nico it turned out terribly, his direct input.
For the art, yeah.
Yep.
She is being served without question by these Confederates. And so I was a little disappointed to hear from you that they took all of this out in the show.
Yeah. I think what happened is that the show got made by Disney, and Disney is afraid of taking a stand on literally fucking anything. And that's from someone who genuinely loves Disney products. I like their parks. I like most of their shows and movies. I'm a shill for the MCU. You guys have gotta say something at some point, for the love of God. This just felt like another instance of a big corporation is afraid of pissing off racists.
Yeah, well, that's because some of those racists are their shareholders.
I know.
How are they gonna maximize profits if they alienate bad people? They need
Ugh.
those bad people's money.
Hey, man, I wish you were wrong. But to get back to the book and by proxy a little bit the show, and I won't belabor it, I
Mhm.
really do think that there was so much of an opportunity for something of intrigue there that there isn't in the book. And that's one of the places that you really could have improved, is maybe not the specific best way I can put it, but you definitely could have done something more interesting and extrapolated upon the book in a way that would have made it feel like the adaptation was more beneficial or more necessary.
Yes. And I'm glad that you brought it back because this was not me just going off on another this is gonna be a tangent chapter, I can just fucking feel it. This was not me erroneously going off in some other direction. I was a little disappointed at how bland the use of the Confederate specifically, it's drawn so much attention is drawn to this is a Confederate battleship.
Yep.
That and not a whole lot is done with it.
Nothing really.
There are some things that could be implied, and there are things that nerds like you and I are gonna talk about for, like, the implications of it, and the
Mhm.
power system when it comes to, like, Ares and the domain that he controls versus the domain that Hades controls, all that stuff, right? But
Mhm.
the reason I brought up the show is because it's like, that seemed like such an easy way to make this far more intriguing
Yeah.
because it's so fucking saltine cracker bland in the book, which is a shame because what we will see is this chapter is really fucking fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening, but the front half of it, there could have been a little bit more, or even maybe some more back and forth with hammering home the idea of like, these are the losers. Clarisse, your dad is the god of the losers.
Yeah. Hey, man, I fully agree because I'm in very much the same boat where and I know we often try to save, like, our proper thoughts on the chapter till the end, or sometimes we'll come out swinging. So it's a little
Mhm.
bit weird to do it, like, 10, 15 minutes in. I thought this was a very good chapter. It's not amazing, it's very fun. I think that a little bit of social intrigue here, a little bit of drama or tension outside of just the big monsters really
Mhm.
would have made this chapter stand out as more than just a fun chapter and as like a, "Whoa, that's a good chapter," if that makes sense. Because it is a
Yes.
good chapter, but I agree that it felt like it was just like, "No, it's just an action chapter. We gotta do some stuff at the beginning, but we're here to shoot and see monsters."
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you agree because again, it didn't ruin it for me, but it was just a bit lacking in a way that I feel like we've seen Rick is able to tackle this stuff well.
Mhm.
And just once again, this is another swing and a miss in this book at least, which is a little disappointing, but pushing through this, Clarisse drops a couple of bombs, starts
Yeah.
quite literally blowing stuff up, we'll say socially. She says Tantalus expelled you guys for eternity. So you guys are not allowed at camp. Insofar as if you do show up at camp, Mr. D said, and I quote, he's going to turn you into squirrels and then run you over with his SUV.
Which was, 1, very funny. I really enjoyed that. Crazy! They
Uh
just
huh.
keep letting this guy be around kids.
Yeah.
And not to get too in the weeds yet again, but we know that Dionysus is not above fulfilling this threat. Seymour, the leopard that hangs in the big house, he absolutely obliterated that man's or that head's owner. I can't remember exactly what happened to him, but I'm sure he got turned into an animal or went mad or something.
Yeah.
Dionysus
No,
was absolutely willing to follow through on his threats. This is crazy. That's terrifying.
correct. This cements if they don't succeed, camp is done for. If
Yep,
they, for some reason, feel that they need to go back, they can't.
they can't.
No matter what, the only way this ends in which they get to come back to camp is with the fleece.
Yeah, which is not a great position to be in, but hey, it's the position they were already in basically, so nothing super new there. And then
Yeah.
Percy asks, "Did they give you this ship?" Clarisse is like, "Of course not. My father did." And I like this for a couple of reasons because Percy replies, "Ares?" italicized.
Mhm.
And what I thought was really interesting there is I think he's going, "Really? Your dickhead of a dad gave you something?" But I was also a little bit interested, like, we know Annabeth got a birthday present from her mom in the hat, and that seems to be a bit of a rarity to have gotten, like, such a pristine and very nice magic item from her godly parent,
Mhm.
but most of the gods aren't around, and he gave her a full-ass boat? Like, this level of involvement and favoritism is kind of unheard of.
Well, yeah, I mean, gave her a whole ass boat. This is also not the first gift that Ares has given Clarisse. She also got her lightning
Yep,
javelin.
the lightning spear.
So he is exceedingly involved. Now, the reason why, one would guess, is I guess the reasons why, some of them we'll get into a bit later,
Yep.
but they're not entirely selfless.
No.
However, I do like that there is this concept that is starting to be played with of Ares objectively sucks, but out of quite literally all of the other gods, he is the most involved and has his finger on the pulse when it comes to his children.
I'm sorry, I got quiet because 'cause I'm pondering if that has anything to do with, like, the way that they're treated as soldiers, and so weirdly, Ares feels he can be more involved if he's like, "Hey, you're not going on a quest, you're taking orders. You're going on a mission." And it's much more
Mm.
therefore, he can kind of swing it such that it's in his domain. Either way, Clarisse continues, she explains, "You think your daddy is the only one with sea power?" And goes on to, as we've talked about before, explain that the spirits on the losing side of every battle owe a tribute to Ares. That's their curse for losing. And so her dad is the god of losers. I
Yep.
mean, amusingly, none of our group, who all would be super down to rib Clarisse, don't point this out, but I guess she is in charge of their well-being right now, so maybe they're actively trying not to piss her off.
Yeah, but you think Percy would stay quiet?
No, I really feel like he'd say something, which tells me that perhaps this is tired Percy who is not putting it together, which would also be very like him.
Yeah, that's fair.
But Annabeth pivots to the important conversation here, which is they saw Luke, and they know that Luke has the coordinates of the fleece. He was heading south, and he has a cruise ship full of monsters. So there's a very good chance that he is going to get in their way. And Clarisse is like, no problem. I'll fucking blow him up. And Annabeth's like, That's not exactly how that's gonna work." And she's like, "No, no, no. This is my quest. We're doing it my way. I'm gonna be the hero, and I'll fucking tell you what to do."
Yeah, and ironically, this is the most Greek hero thing that has ever been said in any of these books. She said, "Oh, there's a problem in my way? I'm gonna fucking destroy it. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just blow it up, and then it won't be in our way anymore." And if we're talking about some of the greats, Bellerophon, he's blameless. Theseus,
True.
even
True.
Perseus,
And Heracles.
and Heracles, all the greats. What have I said before? A little bit of focused violence goes a long way. Now, unfortunately, Clarisse, she veers a bit from the focused violence into just wanton, reckless violence, but we aren't quite
Yeah.
there yet. She's setting the grounds for it, though.
She definitely is. Even with little things like what she says just a little bit later with, "No, I don't care what the Oracle." And she pauses. And Percy then goes, "Wait, what did the Oracle tell you?" And Clarice goes, nothing. I, I, I'm not going to tell you anything, and you're not going to ask any more questions." Which is,
Yeah,
fine. But before
whatever.
that, because I did
Yes.
skip over something, Percy specifically did ask a good question that here's Percy, god of good questions, apparently. "Where are your cabin mates? You were allowed to take two friends with you, weren't you?" And Clarice kind of stumbles through this. They didn't, I let them stay behind to protect the camp. And Percy immediately gets a dig in that he probably shouldn't have. But hey, I get it. It's Clarice. And he says, "You mean even the people in your own cabin wouldn't help you?" But without like belaboring this too much, I do think that no matter which angle this comes from, this is of vital importance.
Yes.
People either see this quest as truly hopeless,
Uh-huh.
or Clarisse genuinely believes, or at least like the rest of Ares' cabin genuinely believes, that it is safer to protect camp than to go on a quest, or not safer rather, but more important to protect camp from monsters than go on a quest to save camp. It just tells you how topsy-turvy camp is right now and how
Mhm.
misinformed many of the campers are.
Yeah, dude. I also picked up on that because I think the immediate inclination is like what Percy says. It's like, "Oh, Clarisse is just unlikable, and the people who she thought were her friends were really just a bunch of fucking goons and lackeys that when the chips are down are gonna leave her." But I don't know if that's true. Maybe it's outright confirmed later, maybe at some point in the book. But from what we've seen in the past, Clarisse is very well respected by
Especially within her cabin.
especially the Ares campers.
Mhm.
So, I could very much see and Clarisse is hot-headed and very egotistical, and we're gonna talk about that literally right after I finish this thought. But she does have, in her own twisted way, the best interest of her brethren and, by proxy, the camp at heart. And
Yeah,
we've seen her step up, like in the beginning of the book, protecting camp more than anybody else was before Percy and Annabeth showed up.
absolutely.
So I could see it being as far as people either saying, "This is a losing quest. This is a losing battle."
Mhm.
We could at the very least hold the line here, like we talked about last chapter. Sometimes the most important thing that a combatant can do is hold the line.
Yeah,
So she says, "I can't take you with me," or they said, "We can't go with you because of XYZ." I don't know. I feel like it's cheap and disingenuous to just have it be, "Oh, well, it's because Clarisse is disliked."
yep. But I get it. That would be Percy's instinct is, "Oh,
Yes,
yeah, I hate you. I know exactly why
absolutely.
people wouldn't wanna spend time with you." But alternative to, like, the idea of duty, I also very much think that because this was Percy's quest that he and Annabeth pushed for, Percy then left, was vilified by Tantalus. It's also entirely possible that the rest of them were just like, "Nah, that Percy guy's up to no good. We can't trust him." And so they were like, "There's no real threat. We don't have anything to worry about, and this quest is a wild goose chase." Or perhaps
Maybe.
some measure of the 2. Maybe there
Yeah.
weren't a lot of people that Clarisse trusted, and so she was like, "There's only, like, 3 people here actively still doing guard duty, so shit, I'm gonna go do this on my own because the only other people who are doing anything around camp need to be at camp, and no one else wants to do anything."
And this is where we get to her ego. And again, this is we don't have anything confirmed yet. This is all
Mhm.
speculation. But Annabeth is I love interactions between children of Athena and children of Ares.
They're
It's
really
so
fun.
fun seeing different sides of the same war coin.
Mhm.
And Annabeth is like, "You don't understand. Like, we have to combine our forces. You have to let us help you." And Clarisse just demands, "No, absolutely not." She pounds the table and she says, "This is my quest, smart girl. Finally, I get to be the hero, and you two will not steal my chance." Now, there's a couple ways we could read this. One, she is legitimately that much of an egomaniac that she is saying, "This is mine." It's like avarice. The concept of glory is consuming her, and she's gonna get it no matter what. And there's a pretty strong case for that, especially for some of the decisions she makes in the latter half of this chapter. But I could also see this as she has been put into an impossible situation, and this is her coping.
I think that because a lot of what this book, especially in these early or in the earlier chapters while we were at camp, we're trying to do were, I feel like, trying to really characterize the conflict that Clarisse is feeling. She is this hot-headed child of Ares, rush right in, do the thing, get out, be done with it. But she's also someone who Camp Half-Blood is to her, those are her people. That's her home. She's a year-round camper. And so this again shows that middle ground of I need to do this for me and I'm going to do it because this is the most important thing. But I do think there's a certain level of you guys are going to fuck this up and this is so important. Please let me just do this the right way. Now her way is not the right way, but she doesn't know that.
Mhm. There are several outside pressures that are pushing on her as
Absolutely.
well. Not camp entirely aside, like, again, this is just outright jumping ahead, but we see pretty fucking quickly Ares is putting a lot on
Yeah.
Clarisse.
It makes sense. Ares has just in the last book been scorned by a demigod. He's on the outskirts, the fringes of the gods now as this kind of either you have to look at him as a traitor or a fool. And unfortunately, fool is probably the better outcome for Ares there. Either way, he needs to himself make up some ground. And he's putting that pressure all on Clarisse. So it makes
Yeah,
sense that she's like, I am so done with this bullshit, and I'm gonna rush in, I'm gonna blow shit up, and I'm gonna win. I have to win. There's literally
yes.
I cannot consider another option.
Mhm. Which,
But
again, that parallels a bit of the thought process that Percy and Annabeth have as well. I mean, failure is not an option.
mhm,
There is an existential threat, and if Clarice gets some glory along the way, then all the better. Make daddy happy, right?
yeah. I think the biggest thing that makes this different is that Clarice's motivations are tainted with this selfishness, whereas, as you pointed out, Annabeth is like, "We need to work together. We are stronger as a team. We are all in this. We are all working toward the same selfless goal. And so, if you could see beyond your selfish need for glory, we could probably accomplish this quest together as a group of three demigods. But that is
But if you're
unfortunately,
Clarice if you're
yep.
Clarice, though, with that ego, you're gonna look at Annabeth, and she doesn't say this, but effectively is implying it. Yeah, fucking cute coming from the bitch who already had her quest.
Yeah, very much so. And just to continue your point about how fun it is to have Ares and Athena cabin campers talking with one another, I love the idea that Annabeth immediately clocks and she says, "So we're prisoners." And Clarice says, "Guests for now." Annabeth immediately sees this situation for what it is, and Clarice is taking this little moment to be like, "No, no, no, you can be guests so long as you don't interfere. We're gonna do things
Mhm,
my way." And Annabeth is like, "No, but I know what your way actually is."
mhm. This can remain civil if you allow it to remain civil, Annabeth. What is exceedingly frustrating, they bring up the Oracle.
Yep.
They just bring up the Oracle, and big main point is that Clarice knows something, and it
Mhm.
doesn't sound good for her, and it sounds like it involves Percy and Annabeth and our intrepid heroes in some capacity. That
Mhm.
probably ends with Clarice not getting what she wants and them likely getting what they want? Maybe? Who's to say? All we know is that that thread is, for some godforsaken reason, dropped. Just
Yep.
dropped.
Yeah.
There's
I
no they don't push back on it. It's literally they say, "Wait a minute, what did the Oracle say?" And she said, "Nothing." Anyways, and I guess Annabeth and Percy are too busy fucking picking their noses or looking at zombies or overheating in the bow of this fucking iron casket out at sea. I don't know. It's one of those things where and it's happened before. It's happened before, and there really is no reason for it outside of Rick using it as a narrative crutch of, "Ooh, what is
yeah.
that?"
It's a little frustrating. Here's my thing, having read the whole book, this is one of those prophecies where to me, it doesn't have quite the same intrigue of like, what could that mean? You read it and you go, "Oh, yeah, I guess if you gave me that in chapter 11, I would just know how the book ended."
Mhm,
And so I think that's why Rick is like, no, not this book. You don't get to know it until the end this time because I like mystery. I'm
I
Rick Riordan, and I am a mystery writer."
and that's fine. Rick can alleviate this by Annabeth saying, "Wait, "You have knowledge of the future and aren't sharing it with us?" To which Clarisse would say, "I'm done talking about this," and, like, storm off, or, I don't know, punch Percy in the face, or something. Throw a fucking full can of Dr. Pepper at Annabeth's skull.
You
Something,
just want Annabeth
anything.
and Percy to try a little bit harder for this
Yes!
vitally important information. I agree. Eh,
Yeah!
there's a reason
Especially
that
Percy, the
yeah,
what we have now dubbed the god of asking good questions.
I fully agree. There's a reason that so many of these myths, I'm like, and it starts unbelievably with them going and asking an oracle for help because turns out that's usually good to know.
Yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
we've delayed long enough. They go to bed. They get some quarters on the ship. They're cramped. They suck. Who cares? But then Percy has another one of these empathy link dreams with Grover. And I feel like this one was a little bit to start giving us some more of the flavor of what's going on. I thought it was fun, but
Mhm.
realistically, it's just here to give us an updated deadline.
Yes.
Percy is dreaming. He can see Grover sitting at the loom where he's been constantly weaving and then unraveling his wedding train when Polyphemus arrives and Grover yelps because apparently Polyphemus arrived quietly and Polyphemus roars, "Unraveling! So that is the problem." And Grover's like, "Oh, fuck, shit, what do I do?" And the Cyclops is like, "Don't worry, I know exactly the right thing." And he goes rummaging through his just man cave of junk. He's got a lazy boy recliner. It's all sheep themed and covered in wool. And
I
he,
feel like you are mischaracterizing a little bit of this
okay, go for it.
because the way that this is played, at least to me and how I read it,
Hmm.
is that Grover got caught
Yes,
doing the thing that he's been using to stall, and now it looks like, uh-oh, Grover is now it's not just, "Oh, you were caught and womp womp." It's like, "Oh, Polyphemus is fucking angry now." Like, he realizes that he is being tricked. So, when he scoops up Grover by the waist and just starts dragging him through the tunnels in the caves, with Grover trying desperately to keep his high heels on because 'cause he's gotta look good, and keep his
actually, no,
veil.
that's so that his hooves aren't noticeable.
Well, yeah, so he can look good.
Oh, of course, yes.
Uh-huh, it keeps the veil. We get to see, again, this big ass cavern with just a bunch of sheep stuff in it. It's funny. He's got a big ass lazy boy recliner with a wool covered kind of lining on it. He's got a wool covered television set, bookshelves with a bunch of sheep collectibles and memorabilia. He's just a sheep fan. Just loves
He is
his
a
sheep.
huge sheep fan.
And a bunch of bones, a lot of which look like sheep, and some of which look kind of like sheep, but not fully. The
Yeah.
bones of a bunch of satyrs who had come to the island looking for Pan. So, all of this point, you think that Grover is being dragged to his death, or something close to it,
And then he gets
correct?
something much better, which is good. And then
Yeah,
it is quickly taken away. No, you're right. I guess I hadn't looked at it because I know what's happening as like, look at this. Grover's being taken to his doom. I knew exactly that Polyphemus is like, I see you've got a problem. Your weaving is unraveling. I shall take you outside and we shall get the good thread.
yeah.
And now it
So
cannot be unraveled.
I viewed it I did not view this as Polyphemus being like, "I'll be a supportive partner," or like, "I'll outsmart you." I viewed this as Polyphemus saw what was going on and was like, "Oh, I gotta fucking murder you right now." So
Hmm.
I, not remembering, was like, "Oh, this is bad." Like, this was actually a pretty high stakes section for me.
These are the end times.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, where the fuck is he going? And so he drags Grover through the cavern, and he moves this huge ass boulder, a lot of boulders. Those are basically the doorways in this cave. Moves an even bigger boulder at the mouth of this cave. And finally, there's daylight. Streams into the cave. And Grover is whimpering with longing because there's finally fresh air. It's nature. He's not just surrounded by death and stale air and decay and a giant monster. And this is truly, it's really
Yeah.
tragic because Grover gets a look at what Percy describes as the most beautiful island he's ever seen. It is a veritable Garden of Eden, a tropical paradise, in large part because of what we see confirmed, the Golden Fleece is there with all its nature magic.
It's
And
impressive to
go
see
ahead.
the level of influence it has.
Yes, it's like the fleece is there, and this is all beautiful and really cool and awesome. Honestly, if anything can fix that fuck ass tree, it is probably this.
Mhm.
And so Percy describes the beautiful scenes, the vistas, the waterfalls, all the flowers blooming, things humming with magic, etc., yada, yada, yada. And Percy says he can feel the power radiating from it. It's making the grass greener, the flowers more beautiful. This is the thing. Grover whimpers yet again. And Percy laments. He says, I can only imagine how powerful the scent would be for a satyr.
Yeah.
Of fucking course, all these seekers thought that Pan was here. And this is where it's heartbreaking because Grover is seeing all of this. And it is where truly I don't think there's anywhere in the world that he would rather be in terms of an environment
Yeah.
because it is clean and pure and beautiful.
It's like paradise.
It
This is
is
the
a
part I was speeding
paradise.
toward, by the way,
Mhm.
is this moment where Grover has this little bit of sunlight and fresh air and gets to take in all of the magic that the fleece provides, and it is so quickly torn away and handed to him as this, "Here, your deadline just got even shorter. Let's head back inside." Like,
Yeah,
his sadness, or even, like, I think it's beyond sadness, he's being tortured.
despair.
Whether or not
Yes,
Polyphemus knows it, Grover is being tortured in this moment. Look at all this that you could have if you could just move that boulder and leave, but you can't.
I Connor, I wrote in my book in the margin, "This is torture." You are
Yep.
100% correct, and it's sickening. He gets a small sip of freedom, something that he may have forgotten what it was like. He may have started to accept that he was not gonna get that again, but it's the hope that fucking kills Connor, and he just got
Mhm.
a little glimpse of it, just a little bit. And again, until this point, and I feel like other readers potentially, would think he's being literally put out to pasture. But instead, we find out Polyphemus is actually just being a really supportive partner. He says, "Yeah, it's been unraveling. Aw, sorry. You're not a very good weaver, are you, honey? Here's some magical wool from my magic sheep flock that I have,
Yep.
and it won't unspool and unthread. So you'll be finished by tomorrow. Isn't that
In no
good?"
time.
Yep. And he's very proud. He's very proud. And I guess you could view it as he maybe knew he was being tricked and now this is him being cruel. I don't view it like that at all. I think this guy's just like, "Oh, huh." He's tapping his head. "I didn't
Mm,
realize you're just so meek and so clumsy, my sweet little thing, my little honey pie. Here, let
Jack,
me assist you."
you gotta stop saying shit, or we're gonna have to watch the show too.
What do you mean? What do you
Uh,
mean?
yeah, man. Okay, I'll just tell you. You have absolutely just plucked a plot point that is different in the book versus the show, and just you ran with it. You just were the writers of Percy Jackson season 2.
Oh, really?
Yes.
But that's just the book. That is what is written here.
Nope.
What do you
Uh,
mean no?
I we'll have to get there when we get there. It's not my fault you don't remember the end of the book, and so I can't tell you what happens, Jack.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me Polyphemus is being cruel with this? He knows exactly what he's doing. He's not just being a supportive partner?
No, he does in the show though. So here, you're right. He's just a supportive partner.
Yeah.
He's stupid. He's like, "Oh, you can't weave, silly wife."
Oh, I
In
see.
the show, he knows it's a ruse the whole time.
I see. I understand. I misunderstood. I thought you were saying, "Jack, everything you just said that was in the book, it's in the show." And I'm like, "That's great. Why is that impressive?" You
No,
were
it
saying the counterfactual that I provided is the
Yes,
show.
is the show,
Ah,
quite specifically. You read this as if you were whoever wrote the show's scripts.
I see. I
It's interesting.
specifically did not view it that way, but I could see where that could be again, that's why I provided it as the
Mhm.
counterfactual. I guess you could view it that way. I'm sorry to hear that that's in the show. I mean, I guess that's kind of interesting, but to me, maybe it's just because this would be my personal hell. The concept of my captor thinking that he's actually being kind of benevolent is far more terrifying than being able to recognize, "Oh, this thing is being cruel."
Yeah. Hey, I can totally get why you would see it that way. But yeah, that is the like the dynamic in the book versus the show is Polyphemus is
I
much
see.
smarter in the show.
I see.
Nonetheless, that is pretty much where the dream ends. They head back into the cave. Grover, tears welling in his eyes as he looks out at this paradise one more time, and the boulder rolls, closing the door and locking
Well,
him back in this nasty ass cave.
that is true. We do actually get some important bits of information. One, a timeline. Uh-oh, we've got
Yep.
a timer properly now.
Yep. You mentioned
But
one
also,
day.
yes, Grover, being a good recon boy, says, "Well, what if somebody were to rescue, I mean, attack the island? I'm just so nervous. What's gonna stop them from marching up to your cave?"
That's a very good
And
point.
Polyphemus says, "Wifey's scared. So cute." "Not to worry. Polyphemus has state-of-the-art security system. Have to get through my pets." And Grover gulps and says, "Pets?" And then he looks across the island, and there's nothing to see except the sheep grazing peacefully in the meadows. And then, just to really bring the point home that Polyphemus is a loyal and brave partner, points at his chest and says, "And then they would have to get through me." And then he says, "No, come on, back to the cave.
Back to the
Come on.
cave. Come on,
You gotta
wifey.
get married tomorrow. Come on."
Yeah. And then Percy wakes up to alarms ringing throughout the
Yeah.
ship because he can get no moments of real rest ever.
Yep. The ringing of alarm bells, the captain of the ship, his gravelly voice, "All hands on deck! Find Lady Clarisse! Where's that girl?" There's something bad happening.
Mhm.
He shows up over Percy. He's like, "Get up, Yankee! Your friends are above. We're approaching the entrance." And this is where the chapter goes from being kind of like, a bit middling, I would say, to just a really solid action sequence.
Yes, 100%. There is a notable break between paragraphs as he says as Percy says, "The entrance to what?" And he responds, "The Sea of Monsters, of course."
Title
Eh,
card.
dun dun dun. Exactly, we have to give space for the title card. And now we're basically in a different chapter. We had
Mhm.
our buffer from the dream. They are entering dangerous waters. Percy grabs all of his shit that had survived the Hydra attack, and he shoves it into a sailor's canvas knapsack, tosses it over his shoulder, and says, "I had a sneaking suspicion that one way or another, I would not be spending another night aboard the CSS Birmingham." And this is when we get the moment with Ares. Percy starts to feel, he describes it as something familiar and unpleasant, that for no particular reason he felt like picking a fight, and that the last time he felt that kind of anger, Ares was nearby. And
Mhm.
that's when he comes across and overhears some of Clarisse and Ares' conversation. Now, I have one line highlighted from this conversation. I've got two lines highlighted from this conversation. I lied. Jack, is there anything else that you would want to dwell on this conversation? Because I feel like we have kind of talked about it. Or do you want me to just hit you with the two things that I was like, I think these are the most important pieces of this before you just fully move on to action?
I've got one thing highlighted. We'll put it this way. Ares is being an aggressive, if not outright abusive father
Yep.
towards Clarice in what she probably viewed as a private moment or a semi-private moment.
Hmm.
He is commanding her. Says, "I don't want excuses." She says, Yes, father." Says, "You don't wanna make me mad, do you?" Says, "No, father." He goes, "No, father." He's mimicking her. And this is what I had highlighted. "You're
Yep.
pathetic. I shoulda let one of my sons take this quest." So
This
now
is
he's a
also what I had
misogynist.
highlighted.
Now he's a misogynist, or and not to give Ares the benefit of the doubt, but he knows how to get a rise out of people. Maybe he's not actually a misogynist. If anything, Clarisse is probably his favorite child that's currently alive. He's saying that because he knows that it is going to motivate her out of spite and anger, which are two areas that he really likes being in.
Yeah. I did think that that was lightly relevant in no small part because Ares is actually because ancient Greek culture was extremely sexist and extremely just a really bad place for women to be most of the time, pretty much always. But Ares is often depicted as one of the more feminist gods. The Amazons are notably he's the patron god of the Amazons. He is the father of many of the Amazons, and across most of his stories, if you fuck with one of his daughters, he will kill you. Like, there are examples where one of Ares' daughters gets raped, and he just is like, "Ah, okay, I'm gonna go kill that guy now." And then he does. He's at like it's very weird to see him be sexist because that's like a very modern idea of toxic masculinity, war, but it's
Mhm.
not very Ares, and those things are contradictory. Mythological aside, I guess.
So then do you think that he is legitimately being misogynistic here, or do you think that he is just trying to get under her skin so it spurs her to more bold action?
I think that given what Rick has characterized Ares as, the character of Ares in Percy Jackson is just different than Ares in mythology. And people change. Who's to say that over 3,000 years he didn't become a shitty misogynist? We all know
Hey, that's
someone
fair.
from high school like that you were like, "Oh, I'm sure they're not that bad of a person." And then 10 years later, you're like, "Whoa,
Whoa!
we haven't
Yeah,
talked in a
uh-huh.
while, and you are saying some crazy shit right now."
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not trying to be an Ares defender here. It's
Nope.
just something that stuck out to me.
I mean, either way, it's cruel, right? Even if he's like, "I'm only saying this to get under your
Oh,
skin," he's actively taunting his daughter while he
it's
threatens
bad.
her.
It's not good, no matter
Yeah.
what. Um,
So, that was the one line
Clarisse,
I highlighted. Mhm.
she is I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess what your next one is, alright? I'm gonna guess what the next line you highlighted is. You
Okay.
said there were 2, correct?
There were 2, yep.
Clarisse says, "I'll succeed," and her voice is trembling. This is so sad. She says, "I'll make you proud."
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that's what you have highlighted, though. Is it?
It's not. Nope.
Okay, good.
Nope.
Sad
I
line.
just agreed that it was
Yep.
sad.
Yep. He says, "Yeah, you better. You asked me for this quest, girl. If you let that slimeball Jackson kid steal it from you." And she goes, "But the Oracle said," and this is what I think you've highlighted, if it's a quote. If it's not a quote, I have one more guess. He says he screams, bellows with such force that his astral projected image begins to shimmer. "I don't care what it said. You will succeed. And if you don't." Now,
I highlighted
you either
everything from eye to fist.
Yep, okay. He raised his fist. And even though he was only a figure in the steam, Clarisse flinches.
That is awful.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. We've seen, and obviously much of what Percy Jackson is trying to speak to is the complicated relationships that children have with their parents. There's no surprise there. But this is the first time that we've seen one of the gods go from neglectful, abusive via neglect, to just straight up physically abusive. And again, it's very in line with Ares' character, but it's very poignant. We're of course at this point we're 150 pages into the book. We've gotten acquainted with it and we're comfortable reading through it. it's gotten you hooked, and I think Rick takes this moment to give us an image of another toxic type of parental relationship and explore how that can affect children. I think this is really important because,
Yeah.
again, I've said it a lot. This is like Clarisse's book. This is the moment I think when Percy suddenly realizes, oh, you're human too. You're just a kid, just like me, and
Mhm.
you're dealing with this. And I think from that moment forward, Percy's perspective on who Clarisse is, why she's a bully, why she acts out, is so different. And I think that's really important because, again, this is middle grade fiction, but even I, as an adult, can see that and be like, what a good reminder that you don't know what's going on in people's lives. You
Mhm.
don't know what trauma they're facing. And it doesn't excuse Clarisse being a dick, but it does provide some explanation. And in a lot of ways, for Percy, that's, I feel like, what he needs.
Yeah, I found it also fascinating, and we talked a bit about this. I don't know if we were recording yet, but we talked about how Ares was we're, like, power scaling him in terms of how good of a dad he is, because
Yeah.
and we definitely talked about this. He is very involved, at the very least, with Clarisse, right?
Yeah.
But in comparison to all the other gods and goddesses, I mean, he's the only parent that is actually showing up and there
Yeah.
for his children.
To
The
briefly cut you off.
tragedy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, to briefly cut you off, just to point out, he's doing an iris message, specifically. So, this implies that all of the gods have access to this main
Mhm.
method of communication that the demigods use, and they are actively choosing not to use it. So, Ares is
Yeah.
the only one who, like, actively shows up, talks to his children, and this is how he uses it. Sorry, you were saying about the
Yeah.
tragedy?
No. Yeah, that you dovetailed perfectly. The tragedy of it is, a lot of what we've seen in these books is absentee parents and the damage that can have and the hole that that leaves. But the damage that Ares causes is because of his involvement. That there are just some parents that are better left away and out of their children's lives, which is just it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's just like the one fucking guy that actually shows up and he does it to be an abusive asshole? Fuck.
Yeah. I don't know. Something about it being this moment where we recognize literally any of the gods could pick up the phone and make a call,
Mhm.
and this is the only one that's doing it, just
Mhm.
makes it so much worse. Like, all of it so much worse.
Yeah, maybe it's because the parents don't care. I mean, that's a big theme throughout this book, or at the very
Mhm.
least, a conflict throughout this book. Do their parents even fucking care about them? They're godly parents. A big case could be made that Ares doesn't care about his children. He just cares about tormenting people and likes being problematic and causing strife. And so he's not calling his kids because he actually gives a shit about them. He's calling them because he knows that he gets stronger by them being angrier.
Mhm. It's really sad, and I think the last detail I'd say on this is we know that Percy is feeling Ares' aura, his
Mhm.
aura of anger and ferocity. Clarisse is cowering. She's stammering. She's making herself smaller. I only point that out because it means that right now, the fear that is inflicted upon her is greater than Ares' own aura of anger and ferocity. Because Percy even notes, or rather, Ares even notes in their conversation in the diner that he likes that Percy is spunky with him. He wants that. He wants the demigods to get agitated. And Clarisse can't even muster up, as a child of Ares, any level of anger or agitation or fighting back. It's just fear and submission.
It's heartbreaking shit, man. I can't think of any other way to put it. It's really fucked up, but so
Yeah,
compelling.
it
Unfortunately
is.
for Clarice, just violently compelling stuff. And all of this is happening in the very frenetic environment of a battle cruiser preparing for something horrible. Alarm bells are still ringing. These zombie soldiers are fucking running all over the top deck and readying the guns and the armaments and making sure that everything's literally ship shape. So this isn't exactly like Clarisse is quietly with her dad in the captain's quarters. This is them preparing for active engagement, which of course, where else would fucking Ares show up?
Yeah, I hate to say it. I don't really know how to move on from that. I think we just have to.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what Percy does. He's like,
Yeah.
"Damn, that sucks." Anyways,
Yeah, because there's
Annabeth
this big existential threat. So they run up,
yeah.
and he sees Annabeth and Tyson are already on the top deck. Percy notes that his nautical senses are telling him that they're already somewhere off the coast of northern Florida, and they're passing around binoculars. And Tyson is, of course, concerned about the boat. He's realizing this ship is not meant for this type of water. This is bad. And now we are fully addressing the, I would say, the elephant in the room, but it's elephants in the room, and they're not elephants. They're two far worse, more dangerous things to encounter, as they are seeing now off to one side a giant whirlpool forming. That Annabeth goes hurricane. Clarisse says no, Charybdis. She, Annabeth pales. Are you crazy? And Clarisse says only way into the Sea of Monsters, straight between Charybdis and her sister Scylla. We're gonna come back to that detail. I take issue with it, but that's fine. Cause now we have fully the stakes. We're going into the Sea of Monsters. We've got to go past Charybdis and Scylla. And oh fuck, it is bad. Also, I'm gonna be saying Scylla because that's more accurate to the ancient Greek that would have been used. I said Scylla my whole life. If I slip up and say Scylla, it makes sense, and I don't fault you for saying it, but I'm trying to say it Scylla.
I'm most assuredly gonna be saying Scylla throughout most of this. So,
No stress.
yeah. But no, the build up to this is really fucking cool. Percy is also again, he's in his element. His nautical senses, he calls them. His nautical senses tell him that they're somewhere off the coast of northern Florida. So they've moved really, really fucking far overnight, farther than any mortal ship should have been able to travel, especially an ironclad such as this. And the engine is groaning as speed increases. And Tyson is starting to mutter to himself a bit nervously, too much strain on the pistons, not meant for deep water, which is true. These original ironclads were not meant for deep water engagements and deployments. And Percy is like, I don't really understand how he knew that, but shit, it makes me nervous nonetheless. And then he's looking out ahead and he sees that there are these dark splotches that are starting to come into view. And to the north, there's a huge mass of rock that raises far out of the sea, an island with cliffs at least 100 feet tall. And then about a half mile south of that, there's just a patch of darkness and a storm brewing. And I
Yeah.
love this little one sentence description. The sky and sea boiled together in a roaring mass.
Yeah. It's good stuff, man. This is the part where we're starting, as you said, we're properly in the action part of the chapter now, and we had to have like the little Clarisse moment as the action's ramping up. But now that we're all at the top deck, we're looking out over the challenges that lay in our path. It's fucking scary.
Yeah,
This is
dude.
legendary level shit. And I was gonna save this point for later, but they are actively going to choose to go through Charybdis and Scylla. The Argonauts were so terrified, they went a different way. The Argonauts,
Mhm.
a boat that had on it
The
Theseus.
Avengers.
Yes, the Avengers. Yeah, the ancient Greek myth Avengers. You know what? I'll say it as I normally do. It had Heracles on the boat. Need I say more? They still went around.
Yeah. And so that is why, again, I wanted to just bring us back to that. As Annabeth and Clarisse are having another great back and forth, child of Athena, child of Ares moment, where Annabeth's like, what is that? Okay, it's Charybdis. Hey, are you fucking insane, Clarisse? To which I do
Are we
find
sure
this
this is any level of brain?
right. And we're going to get to Clarisse's explanation in a bit. I find it's not great, but I do find it interesting. But I do like this is just another one of those magic things that Rick throws out there where it's like the only way to get into the Sea of Monsters is between Charybdis and Scylla. And it's just, hey, that's what you got to do. And Percy asks a good question. He's like, hey, man, it's literally the open water. Why can't we just go around them? To which the answer is magic. More specifically, that you will always have to face them, which is really fucking cool. It's like the gateway to it will constantly be wherever you are. And then Annabeth adds another layer to it, which is what you referenced, which is, hey, why don't we do capital C, capital R, the clashing rocks? Because that's what Jason used. That's another gateway, which again, it's not talked about a whole lot, but I like the idea of there's basically you have to go through horrible things to get to the Sea of Monsters. You have to
Mhm.
pick your poison and know there's no escaping it.
We are gonna come back to why there is absolutely a right choice, and they absolutely did not make it.
Well, right. And that becomes abundantly clear as we learn more about like what the fuck these things are.
Oh, I'm not even just
And
talking between Charybdis and Scylla, but continue.
I'm sure, but Clarisse says, "Yeah, no, not doing the clashing rocks. Can't blow apart rocks with my cannons," which is I feel like wrong, but she does say, monsters pretty good at blowing those. You saw what I did to that Hydra? These
Yeah.
cannons pretty fucking good at doing that actually. And Annabeth hearing this says, "Oh, you are crazy."
Yes!
It's
I
as though she had been really doing like what I was doing, where I'm like, maybe benefit of the doubt, maybe she's smarter than she's letting on, maybe there's this, maybe there's that. It's like, oh no, you're batshit fucking insane for this.
Yes. What got me later was after we have the moment where Annabeth is like, "Okay, you're genuinely just insane," is where Clarisse is going, "We are going to steam straight toward her, train our guns on her, and blow her to Tartarus." And even Percy isn't buying it as he says, "She said it with such relish. I almost wanted to believe her."
Yeah, we're setting the scene for what we're dealing with here. All right, we're not doing the clashing rocks because Clarice can't blow up the rocks or whatever.
Yep.
Then she says, set course for Charybdis. To which the indentured, ghostly servants say, yep, you got it, girl. The engine roars and the iron plating starting to rattle and the ship is picking up more speed. And Percy, having, again, I would say at this point, a working knowledge of mythology, we can once again thank Sally Jackson for that.
Woo!
He says, Clarisse, Charybdis sucks up the sea. Isn't that the story? And she just responds, yeah, and spits it back out. Yeah. And Percy says, what about Scylla? And I can just imagine Clarisse is like standing at the stern. She's like looking, full speed ahead, one leg up on like a railing. She's doing her best captain pose right now.
Yep.
Like, yeah, she lives up in a cave on those cliffs. If we get too close, her snaky heads are going to come down and start plucking sailors off the ship. Which we see, she's correct, really underselling it.
Yes. 100%. We'll get there
We'll
too.
get there. But she really, I will say, she lured me into a false sense of security with that. And Percy, actually quite smart, says, well, choose Scylla. We just have everybody go below and we chug right past her. We don't have people on top of the deck. And Clarisse snaps. She says, no, if Scylla doesn't get her easy meat, she might pick up the whole ship. Pause. Okay. That is an interesting take and something to consider. Is that fair, Connor? That's an interesting problem they might run into, right?
Yeah. I don't know if there's basis for it, but that's because most of the myths that we have, ships still required people to sit on the top deck and row them. So, there was no below deck when you passed Scylla.
But she might pick up the whole thing. Who's to say, right?
I believe it. I'm cool with that.
I Jack hear that and I'm like, okay, maybe,
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
But then she immediately devolves into, besides, she's too high to make a good target. My cannons just can't shoot straight up. Now
God, and if I can't
Charybdis
shoot it, fuck, we're not doing it.
Charybdis. Here's the great news, Percy. All right. Charybdis is just going to sit there at the center of her whirlpool, and we're going to steam straight toward her. And like you said, train our guns right on her, and we're going to blow her to Tartarus. And yeah, Percy's like, damn, she's got conviction and moxie. Despite all of that, what a horrible idea. And this is where, there's a debate that could be had. Is this actually strategy?
No.
Or is
I
this just her being a glory hound?
I specifically don't think it is strategy at all. I think this is definitively Clarisse trying to work against the prophecy, which is, as always, what causes the prophecy to fulfill itself.
Yeah.
So, how very Greek. This chapter, for all of my gripes, it actually does a pretty good job of being mythologically accurate in some of the most important ways. And that continues with them getting closer now to Charybdis, where Percy describes it as sounding like a horrible wet roar, like the galaxy's biggest toilet being flushed. I can just imagine this
Mhm.
Sarlacc pit times 10 level consuming creature from beneath the waves. He
Yeah.
says there are 10-foot waves every time she exhales. And as they get nearer and nearer, he can see how she's sucking up literally everything in a half-mile radius. It
Yeah,
is
you
disturbing.
skipped over a very important metric to me, which is Percy is timing the whirlpool right now, because every time
Mhm.
Charybdis, it's breathing. It inhales and it exhales. When it inhales, the ship shudders and is lurching forward, which already we also skipped over that again. Another mention of things overheating and rattling a little too much.
Yup.
That's not good. And then exhale, the water rises and they're buffeted by 10-foot waves as far out and away as they currently are. That is what is happening.
Yeah.
And so Percy is like, I'm going to time this. And he times the whirlpool. And as best as he could figure, it took Charybdis about 3 minutes to suck up and destroy everything within a half-mile radius, which means that either there's two ways you could view this. One is Charybdis is so fucking large that it is consuming and taking in water for 3 full minutes, and then in a matter of seconds, expelling all of what it took out in those 3 minutes. Or it is sucking everything in for like a minute and a half, and then another minute and a half of just exploding everything back out. Really, Connor? The point I'm making, no matter how you cut it, it's really fucking bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. It is the worst possible situation you could be in on a boat.
And as Percy is seeing this, just unfortunately for him, woefully unable to do anything. He's just truly a fucking bystander at this point. He's like, the only way that we could really avoid all of that destruction and the whirlpool and Charybdis herself is to skirt right next to the cliffs that Scylla's in. And hey, as bad as Scylla might be, those cliffs look pretty fucking cool right now. And as they're prepping for this engagement, undead sailors are just calmly going about their business on the spar deck. And I love this. This is another situation. Everything that's described, no matter how you cut it, it's bad.
Oh, it's awful.
Percy says, I guess they'd fought a losing cause before, so this didn't bother them. Or maybe they didn't care about getting destroyed because they were already deceased. Neither thought made me feel any better.
Either way, not great for me, the guy, alive.
And Annabeth is now also in the same position. It's like, we're just so royally fucked. We're going to be lured into our deaths by Clarisse. And so she's gripping the rail, looking at all of this. And again, I can imagine her looking in the middle distance, brow furrowed as she's thinking, and she's planning shit.
Yep.
She's trying to think of a way out of this, around this something. She says, okay, Percy, you still have your thermos full of wind. And Percy nods. This is also Lot of great strategic back and forths this chapter.
Yeah. I
Everybody
really liked the way she took stock of all their options right here. This was really
yes!
good.
This is awesome. And, Percy adds in too. He wasn't just being like, "Oh, yeah, I got this." He says, "I do have it, but it's gonna be a little too dangerous to use with a whirlpool like that. More wind would only make things worse." And it really is it's a roll call. It's taking stock. She
Mhm.
says, "What about your controlling the water? You're Poseidon's son. You've done it before." And this shows, one, maybe how inexperienced Percy is. He's still what I
Mhm.
would consider a fledgling demigod.
Yep.
But really, I read it more of even the god of the sea can have his domain taken over by other more powerful beings.
Yeah.
And
You're in the
some of
layer
these
of Charybdis
beings
right now.
correct, yeah. He just closes his eyes and tries to concentrate, but Charybdis is simply too loud and powerful. The waves would not respond. And he's just like, "I can't." It is effectively an impossibility. And Annabeth is I imagine she's gripping the railing, tapping her fingers on it. She's like, "We need a backup plan. This is not going to work."
Yeah.
And even Tyson, he shows up. He's there. "Hello, Tyson." He's speaking in full sentences too. He says,
Mhm.
"Annabeth is right. Engine's no good." And Annabeth, I like this. No time for Cyclops racism right now. Is like, what are you talking about? What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Pressures. Pistons need fixing." And before he could explain, the cosmic toilet flushed again with a mighty roar. And the ship lurched forward. Percy is thrown to the deck, and uh-oh, they're in the whirlpool now.
Yep. Not good. Really, really bad.
The
Clarisse
charge
says,
up is happening, bro. This
"Yep.
entire next section is just the charge for
Yeah.
Charybdis. Charybdis is holding down B right now.
Exactly." And Clarisse is doing everything. She's pulling a full reverse. Get us within firing range. Make ready the starboard cannons. The dead Confederates are running around, and a single zombie sailor bursts out of the hold, runs over to Clarisse. His uniform is smoking, and he goes, "Boiler room, overheating, ma'am. She's gonna blow." And she's just like, "Well, fucking fix it. It's not my problem." And this is a fun one. The sailor says,
Mhm.
"Can't. We're vaporizing in the heat."
Yeah, even the
I
undead, it's like, it's not a matter of we won't. We literally, we keep disintegrating. We're turning into ash.
We're not made for this.
Yeah.
And the captain first says, "We're going too fast. Prepare yourself for death." And Tyson goes, "No, I can fix it." And Clarisse is like, "Really? You?" Annabeth is like, "Actually, yes. He's a Cyclops. He's immune to fire and he knows mechanics." Clarisse, "Fine. Good enough for me. Go." Yeah,
Clarisse immediately Annabeth gives all the facts. He's a Cyclops, he's immune to fire, he knows mechanics. The very next line, Clarisse just says, "Go."
I did love that little bit of, like, battlefield communication of, "Here's the bare minimum you need to know. Understood. Order given. Go."
Yeah.
And they have this sweet little moment where he pats
Mhm.
Percy's hand and he says, "It's the only way, brother." His expression is determined. Percy says it's confident even. And he says, "I will fix it. Be right back." Fuck,
Ugh,
dude.
it's my fucking boy.
I
There he
know.
goes.
And then we
Ugh.
get a really nice, mythologically accurate view of Charybdis as Percy notes the black crag of coral with a fig tree clinging to the top. He describes it as an oddly peaceful thing in the middle of a maelstrom. Then we get some Rick-isms, that the teeth had braces.
Let's really dig into the description here because it's a
Oh,
little
please.
confusing. And I, somebody who is getting a master's degree and reading very dry, dense stuff, had to reread this a couple times to really fucking visualize what was going on here. Okay.
Mhm.
So they're seeing Charybdis now. All we've seen thus far is this whirlpool, this
Yeah,
massive
the churn.
conflux, this funnel downward, and then basically a massive water spout shooting up in the distance. We're now in that churn. And now we see a few hundred yards away through this mist and smoke and water, Percy notices this reef. So there is some land there. And it is, as you said, a black crag of coral with a big tree clinging to the top in the middle of it. And it is like the eye of this storm. And then all around that reef, that little parcel of land of coral in that fig tree, there is the water curving down and inward like a funnel, or as Percy says, like light around a black hole. And underneath the reef itself, anchored below the waterline, is an enormous mouth with slimy lips and mossy teeth that are the size of rowboats. So that is effectively all Charybdis is. It's a big ass mouth that is, again, breathing in water and then blowing out the water.
Yeah. It's a big wet sarlacc pit.
Yeah, and it's very basic. It's also one of the most terrifying concepts for a monster that they've come across so far, I would
Yeah.
say. It is
Yeah.
borderline eldritch
I
at
do
just a base
love
level.
that the Greeks had everything from fucking automatons to just
Yes.
Cthulhu. Like,
Yeah.
they were
Yes.
genre spanning.
They sure were. No, I thought the exact same thing, and that is a testament to the creativity of people that came before us, right? But
Yeah.
now, with that all laid out, Rick, it's funny. I almost wish that he played this straight, though, and didn't add this next part,
Mhm.
which is he says that there's these slimy lips, these mossy teeth the size of rowboats, and then even worse, the teeth had braces. Bands of corroded, scummy metal with pieces of fish and driftwood and floating garbage stuck between them. Charybdis was an orthodontist's nightmare. And I kind of would have just liked it if it didn't have that last little bit of the braces. Like, it's silly. I get it. The Minotaur wears tidy whities. Charybdis has
Can I
these,
sneak in why I think that's relevant?
yes.
I don't think that she's supposed to actually have braces. I think the pollution and the garbage in the water is sticking to her teeth in a way that looks like braces.
That's interesting, and I'd buy it if Rick said it that way.
I know, he does specifically say the teeth had braces that had stuff stuck in them, and so I understand I'm perhaps reading it differently, but I do think that this was, like, Rick taking, because there's very few environmental messages in this actually. I think this might be his little way of sneaking in a, "You are polluting the ocean. I know we haven't talked about it a lot this book, but the Earth is dying."
Mhm.
A
That is a
thought.
very interesting that's a good way to look at it. That's how my headcanon is gonna view it. Unfortunately, in the book, it is just 100% it's got goofy ass
Yeah,
braces
it's just
on it.
goofy-ass
Um,
braces. I
which
know.
is which I feel like undercuts what up until this point was a very and it's still a very real threat, but it
Yeah.
felt the most ancient, which is so ironic coming from the Greek myth book. I really liked the idea of the sea of monsters being so powerful that it wasn't Westified, it didn't become goofy in translation, that it's
The
like, "Nope,
civilization
this
cannot
is"
survive there.
right, "This is Scylla, this is Charybdis." That's it. It's a giant, black, disgusting maw, and we'll get to Scylla in a little bit. It's a very small thing, and it's very easy to just gloss over and not worry about, but it did the stakes, I cannot emphasize this enough, phenomenally put throughout what we'll call part 2 of the chapter. Part 1 being all the lead up. Part 2 is they're now preparing for entering the Sea of Monsters, right? Post
Yeah.
title drop, we'll say.
Yep.
And it's been fucking awesome. That was the first thing where I'm like, it took me out of it a little bit. Again, I get it. The rest of the books have done that. It maybe if they didn't include that, we'd be like, that's a little weird.
I don't think
Cinema
so. I
sins
think you're
and
right.
I don't know.
I think that for Charybdis in particular, she should feel eldritch and horrifying. If you're really looking for, like, monster with a silly outfit, we already had the Hydra with bibs, and we were okay with it. Like,
That's true. Yeah.
and that was last chapter. I almost think that that silliness there balances that out enough that you really can take this more seriously. But
Yeah.
the the thing here, right, is we know Tyson rushes down. Nothing is working. Tyson is presumably working away. They're firing off round after round of cannon fire. It
Mhm.
is doing nothing. They say that maybe one of them cracked a tooth, and then eventually she literally spits one back out. It shoots back at them and destroys part of the ship. It is hopeless.
Yeah.
Even Percy says so. But then suddenly the ship starts pulling away. Annabeth says, Tyson did it! And Clarisse says, wait, we need to stay close. Now we have to have the argument of like, do we get close? Do we not get close? It doesn't matter. As they are making this just little bit of progress, Tyson is giving them literally, giving her all she's got, Captain.
Yeah, quite literally. I mean, they're chugging as best they can, but it's not enough. And it's fascinating because in this chapter, Percy really is just a fucking bystander for all of
Yes,
this.
he's
He's
doing whatever he
helpless.
can, but he can't do much. And so
Yes.
suddenly there's this moment of calm, an eye within the storm before Charybdis erupts, having swallowed all the water and pushes it
Oh,
out.
dude, that moment of calm fucking chilled me.
Yes,
Chilled me, dude.
because you know what's
It's just
happening. You
yes,
know it's
it's
nothing
just
good.
the last thing Percy says is, "We'll die. We will die. We have to move away." And he's gripping the rail of the ship, fighting as it's fighting against the suction. The Ares flag is totally broken. It's racing past them. It gets lodged into Charybdis's teeth, and they're not making much progress, but they're holding their own. And Tyson has somehow given us just enough juice to stop from being sucked in. So they're not even moving away at this point. They're just not being dragged inward.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the mouth snapped shut. The sea died to absolute calm. Water rushed over Charybdis. That, and it's just 2 lines. Fucking I closed my eyes. I went, "Oh, no. Oh, no. She's done charging.
Yep.
That's bad."
So you know what comes next. As she shoots out all the water she's just sucked in, Percy describes a 40-foot tall wave that slams into the boat. It picks them up and it takes them all the way to the cliffs on the opposite side of the strait.
Uh-huh. Now,
There
Connor,
is
I know we're about to see this. Do you remember what's on those cliffs?
I sure do.
I
I sh
remembered what was on those cliffs.
I remembered what was on those cliffs.
This is a fucking horror movie we're in right now.
Yeah.
This is worst case scenario. Once again, I'm tapping on the sign referring to the chapter title. Clarisse is trying to blow everything up, but is actually blowing everything else up in exchange in all the
Yes.
worst ways possible. They
Yes.
are slammed against the cliff walls. Everybody gets knocked over. Some people almost get knocked overboard. Somebody stumbles up, says, "The engine is about to blow." Percy screams, "Yo, where's Tyson?" The sailor said, "He's still down there. He's holding it together somehow. I don't know for how much longer." The captain just says, "We have to abandon ship."
This is what
Clarice,
got me. This is what I was getting to when the captain's like, "We gotta go."
yeah. Yeah. He said, it's bad. It can't get worse. We have to, literally, we're dead. We have to abandon ship. Like, we
Yes.
have to, in the most literal sense, save our souls. And Clarice yells, "No!" He says, "We have no choice, milady. The hull is already cracking apart. She can't." And this is where, again, horror movie. He
Yep.
never finished his sentence.
Nope.
Quick as lightning, something brown and green shot from the sky, snatched up the captain, and lifted him away. All that was left were his leather boots. And
Fuck.
fucking another sailor looks up to the cliff and says, "Scylla!" As another column of reptilian flesh starts shooting from over the cliffside and then snaps him up. And it's happening so fast. Percy describes that it's like a fucking laser beam shooting down from the cliff rather than a monster. He can't even make out its face. That is how fast it is. It's just a flash of teeth and scales, and where people once were, they're gone.
Oh my god, dude, it's so good.
It's fucking terrifying. Oh
Yes.
my god. It's awesome. It's so awesome.
And they've got nowhere to go because Percy's like, "Everyone get below!" And Clarisse is like, "No, below deck is in flames." Annabeth is like, "Lifeboats!" Clarisse, "They'll never get clear of the cliffs. We'll be eaten." Annabeth, she's been thinking about this backup plan. "We have to try." She's like, "Percy, we've got the thermos. That is our way out of here. We can't leave Tyson. We have to get the boats ready." Percy's like, get the other boat. I'm getting Tyson. You can't. The heat will kill you. It doesn't matter. As Percy runs for the boiler room, Scylla swoops down and Percy, like the others, is lifted up. It is crazy that he is so lucky, and we will get to this so soon now. He says she had somehow caught me by the knapsack and was lifting me up toward her lair. Without thinking, I swung my sword behind me and managed to jab the thing in her yellow eye. She grunted and dropped me.
We now have a description as well of what it's like to be snatched up by
Yeah,
Scylla. And I love how Rick describes it, and it's really through a lack of description.
yeah.
He says, I ran for the boiler room hatch when suddenly my feet weren't touching the deck anymore. I'm
Yoinked.
just
You got
flying
yoinked.
straight up, wind whistling in my ears, and the side of the cliff is only inches from my face. It just
Yep.
happened.
You had no choice. It happened to you, and there was nothing you could do. The fact that
Yes.
Percy got bit by the backpack is a miracle.
Uh-huh. And the fact that he was able to quick fucking spidey sense reflex stab it in the eye in time is also
Yeah,
incredible. And this is something that I don't know if we've talked about in the podcast, but I know we've talked about outside of it. And that is Percy being an unreliable narrator with regard to his fucking power.
yes.
How strong and fast he is. What we just witnessed, that little tiny section where he says, I got lifted up in the blink of an eye, I stabbed her in the eye, and then I started dropping. Him doing that is effectively a legendary feat.
Oh, yeah. Not to jump a little bit far ahead, because we will go back and get through the stuff that gets to here. But when he does eventually hit the water, he says he hits the water with a crash that would have broken every bone in his body if he hadn't been the son of the sea god. This guy is durable and underratedly so.
Yes. Well, it's underrated because it's Percy narrating it. He
Yes.
doesn't hype himself up. And it's just a little moments like him linebacker tackling Tyson or him moving faster than what he described as a fucking laser beam. It's just wild. It's wild and it's so easy to miss if you're not looking for it.
Yeah. I think it's part of what makes him so endearing is he's like, I'm just a guy. And everyone's like, you are not just a guy.
Once again, the Spider-Man illusions.
Yeah.
I
It's
I
really clear.
he's just such a Peter Parker. I wouldn't be shocked if there was an instance that I just forgot about in some of these books where somebody's like, "Oh, fuck, Percy's been pulling his punches."
Yeah. It's such a good analogy, but all of this, it's so good and it's so bad because as Percy, he's stabbed her, he's falling back down. He's like, fuck, I'm gonna crash into the boat or the water.
Yeah.
Nope. You're gonna crash into a fucking fiery explosion of death as the engine room blows up, sending chunks of ironclad flying in either direction like wings.
A fiery set of wings, mind you.
Percy calls out, still falling, by the way, Tyson! He can see some lifeboats getting away from the ship, flaming wreckage raining down everywhere. He's hoping, praying that Annabeth and Clarisse got away from Scylla. And then Annabeth under the pressure. I don't know how I feel about this, but sure. Percy says he hears a different kind of explosion. The sound of Hermes' magic thermos being opened a little too far. White sheets of wind blasted in every direction, scattering lifeboats, lifting him out of his freefall and propelling him across the ocean. He sees nothing. He hits the water with the crash I described that would have broken every bone in his body. And then we end the chapter on this fucking stinger.
Mhm.
The last thing I remembered was sinking in a burning sea, knowing that Tyson was gone forever and wishing I were able to drown.
Yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, man, fuck.
Jesus Christ.
So,
Dude, what a chapter. I
what
know
a
we were a little
chapter.
it's a little slow to get started, and I know we were a little slow to get started, but holy shit. That entire part 2, mwah, 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 molto bene, chef's kisses, bro. So
Yes.
good.
It takes a little time to pick up, and it's fine. I think there's some room for intrigue there. But once you wake up from the dream and the
Yeah.
alarms are going, it's fucking go time. And the chapter says, great. You see all those pieces I set up? we're gonna need all of them because this is about to get fucking bad.
Yeah. Percy woke up, he was in a fucking Call of Duty mission.
Yeah,
Like, it's
it's a
it
great
was
descriptor.
just wild, and it definitely felt, at least to me, like the most grand of battles that's been in the series so far.
Oh, yeah. This was I don't know if I would even go with grand more than, like, visceral. This was the most I know you described it as horror, and actually, because I have a few seconds to talk about it, I find it very interesting that across 2 of the books, one of our favorite chapters, at least so far, for
Mhm.
me, this has been one of my favorites, is the horror-themed chapter.
Yeah.
One, it's Medusa, here it's Scylla and Charybdis, which are a very different type of horror, but these massive eldritch seeming monsters, these
Yes.
unfathomable things. I found it really interesting, especially
Mhm.
compared to even think about the biggest, baddest monster that we've faced other than this. Maybe it's the Hydra, maybe it's facing down Echidna and the Chimera. Nothing, nothing hits as hard as Scylla and Charybdis, the fucking they are a duo put together for a reason. You are being attacked on all sides. The very
Yeah.
water you're in, the air above you, there is nothing that is safe here.
Yeah. It's a gambit that you always lose, basically, and I think that's why I found this so compelling of an obstacle. Literally, every angle you look at it, and I feel like I've said it so much this chapter, but every angle you look at it, you're just fucked. You're screwed.
I think what this chapter does really well is it delivers on that promise. It's not the, "Oh, you're so screwed. Look, we found a way.
No,
The gods
right.
saved us." No, everything blows up. Everything goes to shit. Tyson is presumably dead. It
Yeah.
there was no winning, and guess what? You lost, and because you lost so fucking bad, it is probably the worst it could have gone.
Yes. I mean, dude, there's a non-zero chance. All right. And this is entirely speculation. This is just guesswork. Let's say, because again, one of the issues they're running into is not just the actual odds put in front of them, but Clarisse getting in her own way. Let's say Clarisse says, "Oh, I'm not fucking stupid. We're gonna go along the rocks and we're all gonna stay underneath the top deck and we're just gonna cruise on through. Easy as, right?"
Mhm.
Rick so easily and realistically could have just had it in another universe where Scylla swoops down with all its different heads and pushes it towards the whirlpool and forces them up on top of the deck or forces something, right? Or they're overheating. Now they're overheating, so now they have to go onto the top of the deck and then they start getting picked off. It's not one of those things where there's a clearly best answer, but there's no good answer.
Yeah. There's no winning. There is only
Yes.
losing.
Now I'm curious because you mentioned at the end you didn't know how you felt about the thermos exploding.
Mhm.
But break that down for me.
I just think that Annabeth is smarter than to be careless with it. That is their one ticket out, and the fact that and I understand they're in a proper panic, but her whole thing is normally she's the cool-headed one under pressure because she's child of Athena. The fact that she opens the lid too big and lets all the winds out only bothers me as much as it does because Odysseus was Athena's favorite hero. That's like the big talking point. So you would think that the thing that Odysseus does wrong is he lets someone oh, I just put it together. Odysseus lets
Uh-huh.
someone else be in control of the windbag for a single moment and then all the winds gets out. Percy lets Annabeth have the wind thermos for a single moment and all the winds get out. All right, I get it. To me, it felt off because Athena, Annabeth, they're kind of not one and the same, but they're inextricably linked, obviously. And so I thought her being the wise one would know the myth of Odysseus and not to let out all the winds. But I can kind of see the parallel now.
I was gonna say, I also noted that parallel, but I also think this might be an instance of there was literally fiery debris being rained down from above on top of a laser snake that was
Mhm.
picking them off. You can be as wise as you want. That's not gonna stop your cortisol and your adrenaline from making your hands shake, or,
That's true.
maybe you lose your balance. and you trip and your hand slips. Like, there's
Mhm.
I'm sure one of Ares' favorite quotes, "No plan ever makes contact with the enemy."
Yep.
Uh,
I
I
tell you what, the other thing I'm thinking about too is just to give her the benefit of the doubt, it's also possible that she saw Percy careening toward the water and the debris and thought
mm,
that giving some little bit of wind might have provided some cushion or just a push so he
yeah,
didn't land in the flaming debris. I'll give it that
yeah,
too.
mhm. Yeah,
Either way,
this was not one where I was like, "Annabeth, you really fucked up." I saw it as, "Wow, what an end cap on a series of very, very unfortunate events."
yeah, that's the all right, you need to make a strength check. Uh-oh, my character's not good at that. Nat 1, what happens?
Right, what happens?
No,
Exactly.
I totally get that. Honestly, if that's my biggest criticism from all of that, who gives a shit? What a frenetic action scene. Like,
Yeah.
it is so fun. I really enjoyed that action.
Yeah.
But, hey man, do you wanna swim over to some debris and see if we can float long enough before the
Man,
whirlpool comes back?
you're not even gonna put us on the boat. We're not even on the lifeboat, man. We're floating on debris right now.
Yeah, we're floating on debris right now. Don't
Fuck
worry,
it.
Scylla's been fed. She's not hungry anymore.
All right, man, sure.
We are gonna start by talking about Scylla and Charybdis.
Mm,
I considered whether to do these 2 separately or together. I ultimately landed on doing them as a joint myth because of course I did. They
yeah.
nearly exclusively appear together. Their most prominent role, as you would not be surprised to find out, is in the Odyssey. It's in book 12 when Odysseus, much like Clarisse and the other demigods aboard her ship, are forced to choose which side of the narrow channel that they will row through. There are other myths that do also reference Scylla and Charybdis, but we're going to start with the Odyssey. Before that, though, we're actually going to start with the real world, Jack.
Oh shit.
Yeah, stepping a little bit on your toes. There is a strait in Italy that is today called the Strait of Messina, and it is the real world location that presumably inspired the myth. Now, that's hard to say with 100% certainty, as there are obviously no clear records of how it was named or the things around it were named. But we even have ancient sources, such as Greek geographer Strabo, who describes the Strait of Messina very clearly in his work Geography. And the Roman writer, Pliny the Elder, even specifically says this about the Strait of Messina. In these straits is the rock of Scylla, and also the whirlpool of Charybdis, both notoriously treacherous. These ancient writers, who were writing around the turn of the millennia, genuinely believed this was the location of the myth, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So, this strait resides at the southwest tip of what is modern day Italy. It forms the gap between Sicily and Calabria, which is attached to the peninsula, and Sicily is an island. On the northern side of the strait, there is even a naturally occurring whirlpool. The whirlpool is reported to not be too dangerous in modern times. It has sunk a few small ships, though, and on the Italian mainland side, funny enough, not in Sicily, but in Calabria, there is a rock that has long been named since the time of Greek geographer Strabo, Scylla.
Hmm.
So this is pretty likely the real world place that inspired the Homeric work that we know today. Which, I mean, at a face level, I just want to stop on that for a second. To me, that's so cool. I
No,
could
that's
go
really
look
neat.
at the whirlpool that ancient writers were like, that eats ships. That's a monster.
Yeah, that's a
And
big
I'd
mouth.
probably be like, I get it.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
If the
dude.
ocean just swallowed boats, I'd think that was a monster too.
Yeah.
But the Odyssey, of course, does not give us an origin for these monsters. Much as we've kind of been talking about them today, they're referenced much more as these eldritch, unavoidable horrors. What that means for us is that we're actually not given a lot of information as to like these creatures' lineage. And I mentioned I took issue with the fact that they're described as sisters earlier. That's because in the Odyssey, we are given a name for Scylla's mother, Kratais. This comes with its own caveat because we can see other examples of the name Kratais, but it's associated with two very different figures. Keto, the mother of sea monsters, who we've talked about before, and Hecate, who does have some association with the sea, but is very different than Keto, being the goddess of magic and much more a modern, by ancient Greek standards, modern goddess, as opposed to Keto, who's seen as more of a primordial force, a primordial goddess.
Mm.
This actually has led to a lot of confusion over the ages. Ancient scholars seem to state that Scylla's father was likely Phorcys, despite that not appearing in the original text. This is probably just because Keto had many other monstrous children with Phorcys that do appear in other texts, like the Theogony. However, that's, again, not always attested. In some works like Apollonius Rhodius's Argonautica from the 3rd century BC, it is not Keto, but very explicitly Hecate. See this quote where it says, Ausonian Scylla, the wicked monster born to Phorcys by night-wandering Hecate, whom men call Kratais. So Phorcys does carry over here, but now it doesn't make a lot of sense, and modern scholars call to attention that Phorcys basically never had any relation to Hecate. So this is, again, the idea that Phorcys paired with Keto confusing writers as time goes on.
Mm.
Further complicating this matter, Kratais is also used to describe Charybdis.
Damn.
This actually does make sense, and we probably can figure out why for this one. And that's because Keto and Charybdis were on occasion confused for one another. Mother of sea monsters, giant eldritch sea monster. I guess it makes sense. This is made only more so confusing by the fact that Pseudo-Apollodorus reports on the uncertainty around the lineage of Scylla and tosses out another name for a potential mother, Trianos, which most scholars guess this is yet another name for Charybdis, though we have no definitive answer on that. This is because Trianos means 3 times, and we'll get to this later, but Charybdis was not said to swallow the sea every 3 minutes, but 3 times each day. But as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of confusion here. Trianos is also used as a title for Keto, probably due to the Charybdis-Keto mix-ups.
Uh-huh.
And that's actually not even the last potential lineage, as Pseudo-Hyginus just says, I don't know, fuck it, man. She's a child of Echidna and Typhon. I got no idea.
And you know what? That's a fair guess.
Yeah, honestly. Especially because he's talking about Scylla, and that's just throwing one more many-headed monster in their pile. Like,
Mhm.
that's very normal for them.
Yeah.
Again, that is all to say that we're just never gonna get a definitive answer. Sorry, that's life. The most likely scenario, or the scenario that I find best for me, is that it is likely Keto, and that all of the confusion around Keto and Charybdis and Hecate via titles is what has made it undiscernible to a modern audience. But hey, if you don't subscribe to any of those theories, you could always look at a scholar from around 1,000 years after the work of Homer, who said, oh yeah, I studied this. Scylla's parents are Poseidon and Gaia, clearly.
Yeah. That dude, so fair.
Fucking decide on something. That's a lot of
It's like
background.
it's the Joker. It's the Joker. You get to kind
Yes,
of multiple choice backgrounds.
exactly. But now that we're done with the background, let's get to the fun part. Let's jump into the myths, and I do mean myths
Yeah.
plural. But of course, I cannot start with anything other than the Odyssey. I have delayed long enough. I mentioned that they appear in Book 12. We first learn of Scylla and Charybdis when Odysseus is getting advice from Circe for the coming journey. They're at her island. This is after they've resolved their issues, and she tells Odysseus, a second course lies between headlands. One is a sharp mountain piercing the sky with storm cloud round the peak, dissolving never, not in the brightest summer to show heaven's azure there, nor in the fall. No mortal man could scale it. nor so much as land there, not with 20 hands and feet, so sheer the cliffs are, as of polished stone. Midway that height, a cavern full of mist opens toward Erebos and evening. Skirting this in the lugger, great Odysseus, your master bowman, shooting from the deck, would come short of the cave mouth with his shaft. But that is the den of Scylla, where she yaps abominably a newborn whelp's cry, though she is huge and monstrous. God or man, no one would look on her in joy. Her legs, and there are 12, are like great tentacles, unjointed, and upon her serpent necks are borne 6 heads like nightmares of ferocity with triple serried rows of fangs and deep gullets of black death.
Damn.
Half her length, she sways her heads in the air outside her horrid cleft, hunting the sea for dolphins, dogfish, or whatever bigger game thundering amphitrite feeds in thousands. And no ship's company can claim to have passed her without loss and grief. She takes from every ship 1 man for every gullet. Reminder, 6 heads. The opposite point seems more of a tongue of land. You'd touch it with a good bowshot at the Narrows. A great wild fig, a shaggy mass of leaves grows on it, and Charybdis lurks below to swallow down the dark sea tide. 3 times from dawn to dusk she spews it, and sucks it down again 3 times. A whirling maelstrom. If you come upon her, then the god who makes the earth tremble could not save you. No, hug the cliff of Scylla, take your ship through on a racing stroke. Better to mourn 6 men than lose them all. And Odysseus, not yet fully understanding her meaning, asks her,
Only instruct me, goddess, if you will, how, if possible, can I pass Charybdis or fight off Scylla when she raids my crew?
must you have battle in your heart forever? The bloody toil of combat? Old contender, will you not yield to the immortal gods? That nightmare cannot die, being eternal evil itself, horror and pain and chaos. There is no fighting her. No power can fight her. All that avails is flight. So,
Damn. She said, you get your ass out of there.
yes, she specifically has said, there is no escape. You must go the path of Scylla, and you will lose 6 men. That is what will happen. So the story continues, and soon after they depart from Kirke's island, they set sail and they come across the strait. Odysseus calls out to his men, and here again he will recount what he told them and what followed.
Heads up, lads. We must obey the orders as I give them. Get the oar shafts in your hands and lay back hard on your benches. Hit these breaking seas. Zeus help us pull away before we founder. That was all, and it brought them round to action. But as I sent them on towards Scylla, I told them nothing, as they could do nothing. They would have dropped their oars again in panic to roll for cover under the decking. Kirke's bidding against arms had slipped my mind, so I tied on my cuirass and took up 2 heavy spears, then made my way along the foredeck, thinking to see her fist from there, the monster of the grey rock, harboring torment for my friends. I strained my eyes upon that cliffside veiled in cloud, but nowhere could I catch sight of her. We rowed into the strait, Scylla to port on, and on our starboard beam Charybdis, dire gorge of the salt sea tide. By heaven! When she vomited, all the sea was like a cauldron seething over intense fire, when the mixture suddenly heaves and rises. Damn, got a lot to say, don't you, Odysseus?
Sure does.
But when she swallowed the seawater down, we saw the funnel of the maelstrom, heard the rock bellowing all around, and dark sand raged on the bottom far below. My men all blanched against the gloom, our eyes fixed upon that yawning mouth in fear of being devoured. Then Scylla made her strike, whisking 6 of my best men from the ship. I happened to glance aft at ship and oarsmen and caught sight of their arms and legs dangling high overhead. Voices came down to me in anguish, calling my name for the last time. She ate them as they shrieked there in her den, in the dire grapple, reaching still for me, and deathly pity ran me through at the sight. Far the worst I ever suffered questing the passages of the strange sea. Damn!
Kind of
Fuck!
horrifying, isn't it?
I think these are my favorite monsters, dude.
They're really good. They're really scary. I just love the way Odysseus is like, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to fight them, but it literally did not fucking matter. You can see
Oh,
why Rick and Percy describe Scylla as a laser coming down to the ship. The way he's like, they whisked the 6 men from the ship. He had no chance but to just like glance at them for a brief moment. He's like, oh, fuck. They're just gone. Just swept away.
yeah.
God.
People screaming for him the last time he heard them call his name. Holy shit.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Odysseus, this is not the last time he saw this straight in this journey or even this chapter.
Damn.
In a story for another day, Odysseus's men kill the cattle of Helios, the sun god. So he calls Zeus, punishes Odysseus's men, and the result is a storm that shreds their ship and kills every single man aboard, save for one, Odysseus, who survives floating on a piece of the wreckage. He recounts further.
It's just, he suffers so much.
Yes.
He just, it's just, I'm sorry, it's taken me out. I really gotta reread the Odyssey at some point because holy shit, I forgot how bad it was for this guy. Oh
Yeah.
my god. Whew. Odysseus says, nor had I seen the worst of it, for now the west wind dropped and a southeast gale came on. One more twist of the knife, taking me north again, straight for Charybdis.
Yep.
He's-
He gets to see
oh my god.
God.
He just knows, he's like, oh, fuck, he's sending me packages on this driftwood.
Yep.
Ugh. Oh my god. All that night I drifted. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And in
No,
the
it's okay.
sunrise, sure enough, I lay off Scylla Mountain and Charybdis Deep. There, as the whirlpool drank the tide, a billow tossed me, and I sprang for the great fig tree, catching on like a bat under a bough. I clung grimly, thinking my mast and keel would come back to the surface when she spouted, and ah! How long with what desire I waited, till, at the twilight hour, the long poles at last reared from the sea. God, Jesus Christ, bro!
So, yeah, that fig tree from earlier, in case you missed exactly what was going on there, Odysseus spent a full day hanging from that tree, from near sun up to twilight, as he describes it,
God,
waiting
dude,
for the wreckage of his boat to reemerge.
Homer fucking hated this guy. He just
Yes!
fucking hated Odysseus so much.
Dude, it just makes me think about that line from last episode with the windbag.
It's like, I should kill myself, but I guess I just gotta grit my teeth and bear it.
Yup. Yeah, that was when he still had some level of hope.
Yep. Oh my god. What fucking willpower this guy has.
Yeah. So in the span of like 2 days, he ran into both Scylla, and then all of his men died, and then Charybdis.
Oh my god. Whew. Oh, I've got tears in my eyes. I'm so sorry. So sorry that I couldn't stay serious about all that. It's just so ridiculous. It's so darkly comedic.
Dude, you're good. Just wait until we talk about Jason and the Argonauts properly in our next myth for today. But first, I do want to briefly touch on the Argonautica and then one other myth before we go move to the Clashing Rocks. Because Scylla and Charybdis are mentioned in the story of Jason and the Argonauts as well. But since we've already spent more than our fair share of time on these two, and we're going to read some passages from the Argonautica later, I'm instead going to turn to a passage from Pseudo Apollodorus that very effectively summarizes their appearance in this story. The ship encountered Charybdis and Scylla, and the Plancti, which are the wandering rocks, by the way, different set of rocks, above which a great flame and smoke were seen rising. But Thetis, with the Nereids, steered the ship through them at the summons of Hera. And truly, that about summarizes it. Hera steps in to help Jason on his journey yet again, this time by summoning another goddess, Thetis, who is a sea goddess without a clear domain. And the sea goddess literally just says, hey, no worries, y'all. We can go around it. There's another way. What, going through that strait with those monsters? An idiot would go in there.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody with a death wish.
Yes. The last myth where we see Charybdis and Scylla is the Aeneid, one story that we haven't actually talked about at length. This is the story of Aeneas, the son of Aphrodite. Often regarded as the first Roman hero, he was related to the Trojan royal house, and actually he appears in the Iliad as a minor character. But his major claim to fame is this story, Virgil's Aeneid, where he is painted as the ancestor of Romulus and Remus, which is why he is known for being Rome's first hero. I bring this up now because Scylla and Charybdis appear in this story as Aeneas is leading a group of refugees that are leaving Troy after the victory of the Achaeans in the Iliad. They go by boat, and thus they do encounter Scylla and Charybdis. It actually is a really interesting story, and I'll be looking for an opportunity to tell you more of it. But Aeneas is taking his band of refugees around the Italian peninsula as they flee Troy. And eventually, they will land on the west coast of Italy, cementing themselves as the predecessors of Rome. Well, think about where I said the real world location is earlier at the southwest tip of Italy. It means that they are almost certainly going to be going past the Strait of Messina and Scylla and Charybdis. The Aeneid gives a description of Scylla and Charybdis that is very on brand with everything else we've already been told, so it's not worth retreading. But I did think I would read this small section. Anchises, that's Aeneas' father, cried, "That must be the infamous Charybdis! Those are the reefs, the terrible rocks that Helenus told of! Row for your lives, my comrades! Pull together, row!" Aeneas recounts, "Yearly they all obeyed my father's command. Palinurus turned away first to port, the bows of his vessel creaking, then the whole convoy, with oars and sails, clawed off to port. We were tossed up high on an arching surge, and then we went in the trough as the wave fell away beneath us down to the very pit. Thrice roared aloud the reefs and the caverns of rock beneath us. Thrice we beheld the sky through a spattering flounce of spindrift. Notably here, they choose not to go through the strait, and instead go around it. They only witness these whirlpools of Charybdis from the far outskirts. So, you specifically can go around them, and two of the three myths involving these guys, they go around them.
For good reason.
Yeah. But Jack, that is all I have on these monstrous gatekeepers of the Mediterranean.
I love it. I think those are my favorite monsters. They're
really
basic,
cool.
but they do their job really well.
Yeah. I love the idea of this you have to pick one mentality.
Mhm.
And it's so fucking fitting that Odysseus has to deal with both.
Both of them. It's just I hate to belabor it, but him floating on a piece of fucking like driftwood for like an entire night and just knowing he's like, God damn it, it's getting closer, it's getting closer. Just the
Mhm.
dread. Oh my god.
Oh, and add on top of that, that means he's backtracking yet again.
Again! Yeah, wow,
This
I
time,
picked up
not
on
at the
that.
speed of wind, but like a snail drifting toward his inevitable doom.
Yep. Oh my god.
Yeah. But now, because Annabeth mentioned it and they don't come up again in Percy Jackson, let's talk about the Clashing Rocks,
Yeah.
which actually have a second name. They're also known as the Simple Glades. I prefer the name Clashing Rocks because it's just a translated version, and I think it sounds really cool, so we're going to be sticking with that for the most part. So, if when we had left Troy, we had gone east toward Turkey instead of west toward Italy, we may have come across this other strait of mythological legend. This time, the entrance to the Black Sea, the Bosporus Strait, which is now flanked on either side by the sprawling city of Istanbul. It's actually the narrowest strait in the world used for international travel today, which is a wonderful segue into its mythological title, the Clashing Rocks. The narrow path of the strait makes it difficult to navigate, even for modern ships. As such, this sole passage in and out of the Black Sea earned a dangerous reputation in ancient times that formed the mythology of the Clashing Rocks. So, as I mentioned earlier, they appear specifically in the tale of Jason and the Argonauts. The Argonauts face these rocks in Book 2 of the Argonautica as they continue their journey toward Colchis to find the Golden Fleece. Colchis is purported to be somewhere in Asia, by the way.
Mhm.
On this journey, they stop for information at the home of the prophet Phineas. For more story reasons that we don't have time for, Phineas is blind. He pissed off Zeus, who offered him a choice. He said, "Would you rather be dead or blind?" And Phineas chose blind. He then gets punished by a different god for a different reason so that he's never allowed to eat ever without harpies stealing his food. The gods really did not like this guy.
I got that.
So the Argonauts arrive and they agree to help Phineas with his harpy problem in exchange for prophetic information on what challenges they will face on the rest of their journey to Colchis. And he tells them, "First of all, after leaving me, ye will see the twin Cyanean rocks where the two seas meet. No one, I ween, has won his escape between them, for they are not firmly fixed with roots beneath, but constantly clash against one another to one point, and above a huge mass of salt water rises in a crest, boiling up and loudly dashes upon the hard beach. Wherefore now obey my counsel, if indeed with prudent mind and reverencing the blessed gods ye pursue your way, and perish not foolishly by a self-sought death, or rush on following the guidance of youth. First entrust the attempt to a dove, when ye have sent her forth from the ship, and if she escape safe with her wings between the rocks to the open sea, then no more do ye refrain from the path, but grip your oars well in your hands and cleave the sea's narrow strait, for the light of safety will be not so much in prayer as in strength of hands. Wherefore let all else go and labor boldly with might and main. But ere then implore the gods as ye will. I forbid you not. But if she flies onward and perishes midway, then do ye turn back, for it is better to yield to the immortals, for ye could not escape an evil doom from the rocks, not even if Argo were of iron." They
Okay.
then part ways
Okay,
with
okay.
Phineas. Obeying his recommendation, they bring a dove with them, and they continue on their journey, coming quickly to the next challenge, the Clashing Rocks. Jack, this is an apology from note-taking Connor specifically for you. I wrote this down. It says, I decided to just include the next section pretty much in full, so feel free to jump in and interrupt me if anything catches your attention.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you now, this is 7 paragraphs.
Jesus Christ, Connor.
They're short paragraphs, but it's 7 paragraphs. And for those
Got
at
it,
home,
man.
it's just a good section in the Argonautica, so I decided I was going to read it.
Hey, man, you got it, dog. Everybody go grab a snack, crack a beer.
Now, when they reached the narrow strait of the winding passage, hemmed in on both sides by rugged cliffs while an eddying current from below was washing against the ship as she moved on, they went forward sorely in dread, and now the thud of the crashing rocks ceaselessly struck their ears, and the sea-washed shores resounded. And then Euphemus grasped the dove in his hand and started to mount the prow. And they, at the bidding of Typhus, son of Hagnias, rowed with good will to drive Argo between the rocks, trusting to their strength. And as they rounded a bend, they saw the rocks opening for the last time of all. Their spirit melted within them, and Euphemus sent forth the dove to dart in flight. And they all together raised their heads to look, but she flew between them, and the rocks again rushed together and crashed as they met face to face. And the foam leapt up in a mass like a cloud. Awful was the thunder of the sea, and all around them the mighty welkin roared. The hollow caves beneath the rugged cliffs rumbled as the sea came surging in, and the white foam of the dashing waves spurted high above the cliff. Next, the current whirled the ship round, and the rock shore away the end of the dovetail's feathers. But away she flew, unscathed, and the rowers gave a loud cry, and Typhus himself called them to row with might and main, for the rocks were again parting asunder. But as they rowed, they trembled, until the tide, returning, drove them back within the rocks. Then most awful fear seized upon all, for over their head was destruction without escape. Euphemus strode among all his comrades and cried to them to bend their oars with all their might, and they did, with a shout, smote the water. And as far as the ship yielded to the rowers, twice as far did she leap back, and the oar were bent like curved bows as the heroes used their strength. Then a vaulted billow rushed upon them, and the ship like a cylinder ran on the furious wave plunging through the hollow sea. The eddying current held her between the clashing rocks, and on each side they shook and thundered, and the ship's timbers were held fast. Then Athena, with her left hand, thrust back one mighty rock, and with her right pushed the ship through. And she, like a winged arrow, sped through the air. Nevertheless, the rocks, ceaselessly clashing, shore off as she passed the extreme end of the stern ornament. But Athena soared up to Olympus. When they had escaped unscathed, and the rocks in one spot at that moment were rooted fast forever to each other, which thing had been destined by the blessed gods, when a man in his ship should have passed between them alive. And the heroes breathed again after their chilling fear, beholding at the same time the sky and the expanse of the sea spreading far and wide. For they deemed that they were saved from Hades. And Typhus, first of all, began to speak. "It is my hope that we have safely escaped this peril, we and the ship, and none other is the cause so much as Athena, who breathed into Argo divine strength when Argus knitted her together with bolts. And she may not be caught. Son of Aeson, no longer fear thou so much the hest of thy king, since a god hath granted us escape between the rocks. For Phineus, Agenor's son, said that our toils hereafter would be lightly accomplished." But Jason, with gentle words, addressed him in reply. "Typhus, why dost thou comfort my grieving heart? I have erred and am distraught in wretched, helpless ruin. For I ought, when Peleus gave the command, to have straightway refused this quest to his face. Yea, though I were doomed to die piteously, torn limb from limb. But now I am wrapped in excessive fear and cares unbearable, dreading to sail through the chilling paths of the sea. And ever when my day is done, I pass a night of groans from the time when ye first gathered for my sake, while I take thought for all things, but thou talkest at thine ease, eating only for thine own life, while for myself I am dismayed not a whit, but I fear for this man, and for that equally, and for thee, and for my other comrades, if I shall not bring you back safe to the land of Hellas." Thus he spake, making trial of the chiefs, but they shouted with loud and cheerful words, and his heart was warmed within him at their cry, and again he spake outright among them. "My friends, in your valor my courage is quickened, wherefore now, even though I should take my way through the gulfs of Hades, no more shall I let fear seize upon me, since ye are steadfast amid cruel terrors. But now that we have sailed out from the striking rocks, I trow that never hereafter there will be another such fearful thing. if indeed we go on our way following the counsel of Phineas. So that was a lot.
You taking a break, or is that it?
That's it.
Wow. Yeah, take a breather, man.
Well, breather notwithstanding,
Uh-huh.
the last thing I wanted to draw attention to, because there's a lot in there and it probably got lost. The last thing I want to draw attention to from this story is that part of this myth is etiological. For those that don't know what etiological means, it means that it presents an explanation for something in the real world. Here, it actually explains why the clashing rocks no longer clash. You may not have caught it, but it did say that it had been destined by the blessed gods when a man in his ship should have passed between them alive, that they would be rooted fast forever to each other. So, the actual strait, this entrance to the Black Sea, remains no longer clashing because Jason and his crew earned the favor of the gods by fulfilling a prophecy, and thus the rocks were unmoving from that point. So actual sailors that saw these and knew the story of Jason and the Argonauts would know why they wouldn't be smashed to death between the rocks.
Huh.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Neat.
But that is our myth section. Scylla and
Ooh.
Charybdis and the clashing rocks. Barriers to entrance to the sea of monsters.
Damn. Is there more? Were there more
Nope,
myths?
that was it. Those are
That's
our
it?
myths today.
I didn't wanna step on your toes. Editor Connor, play the music, play the theme, sound the horns, hark! Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have yet another exciting entry of Ramblings from Cabin 6. We talked about ironclads last episode, Connor, when
We did.
in reality we did. Believe it or not, we did. In reality, we probably could have talked about them this chapter because they do more in this chapter, but I jumped the gun. So, womp womp. Could I have talked about ironclads more? Yeah. Did I want to? Absolutely fucking not. And I did not want to do that to any of you guys. But, I did find something. There is a very, very brief reference to a Confederate general that I decided, you know what? I'll do a little bit of research into this, see if there's anything interesting, and fell down a little bit of a historical rabbit hole that I think actually ties in exceedingly well to the book series that we're reading. So, if you recall, Connor, at the very beginning of this chapter, the dead Confederates are sizing up our heroes and saying that they liked Annabeth because she's from Virginia, and that they initially liked Percy Jackson because his last name is Jackson. And that is in reference to Thomas Jonathan Jackson, also known as Confederate General Stonewall Jackson. Now, Connor, you, not being a huge history buff, have heard about, at the very least, the name Stonewall Jackson, correct?
Correct. That's
Okay.
about all I know about him, that he was a
And
Confederate general and his name.
and that's very fair. But because you know that, you at the very least conceptually understand this guy's important. If you remember a
Yes, I do.
general's name, it's probably because something really important happened that he did.
Exactly.
He basically played a very prominent role in a lot of military engagements in the Eastern theater of the American Civil War until his death. He is also a very key example of some things that I derided in my last little speech last chapter of romanticization and deification of very real historical figures. He is one of these almost totemic historical figures when it comes to American history. He was born January 21st, 1824, in Virginia, actually born in the part of Virginia that is now West Virginia, and grew up in what I would consider to be a fairly rough environment. Perhaps not an uncommon one. He moved homes multiple times due to perpetual deaths of his guardians. Mother's father, extended family, people just dying. People are sick, people get old, it happens. It was the 1820s, 30s, 40s. People would just die at the drop of a hat.
Yep, that's
And
not surprising.
who would have thought, right? he eventually ended with, I believe, his uncle, where he lived with a few of his siblings. He eventually grew up and decided he wanted to join the military, at which point he received an appointment to the United States Military Academy, and he graduated the class of 1846. He served in the U.S. Army during the Mexican American War and specifically distinguished himself at the Battle of Chapultepec. That is a story for another day. And by another day, I mean do your own research. We are never going to talk about that here. But he was important in it. From 1851 to 1861, he ended up actually teaching at the Virginia Military Institute. He was largely regarded as being harsh but fair and a loyal teacher to his students. And his students would really remember him fondly, and that reputation would follow him through the ensuing American Civil War with all of his soldiers. He is, generally speaking, the most popular of the Confederate generals, not only in terms of popular history, but also in terms of, for the time, people were really rocking with Stonewall Jackson. But in the Civil War, what did he do? How did he distinguish himself? Why is he remembered as Stonewall? Well, when Virginia seceded from the United States in May of 1861 after the Battle of Fort Sumter, Jackson ended up joining the Confederate States Army due to his allegiance to the state of Virginia. He ended up commanding a brigade at the First Battle of Bull Run, which is also called the Battle of First Manassas. Funny thing about the American Civil War, we love having like several battle names for the same thing.
Nice.
Just a side note, there's a lot of that. You might be like, wait, the Battle of First Manassas? What are you talking about, the Battle of First Bull Run? It's the same thing. Don't worry about it.
And Bull Run is like the first battle of the Civil War, right? I know Fort Sumter's the attack that kicks it all off, but Bull Run was like the
The
first one.
first Battle of Bull Run it's a big ass deal.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a whopper. Yeah.
And don't the North get their asses whooped, right?
If I'm remembering correctly, it was a victory for the Confederates and basically stopped. This is me just off the top of my head. I did not research a lot of the Battle of Bull Run. I am pretty sure that you are correct. This is more the battle where the Union thought they were going to have a decisive victory and end the war, end the insurgency, and they didn't happen. This really ground
Gotcha.
stuff to a halt and showed that this was going to be a longer conflict. It was because of that, in which this battle, he specifically provided crucial reinforcements and beat back a very, very fierce, headstrong Union assault. And because of this, another Confederate general, Bernard E. B., said that he was like a Stonewall, and that's how he got the nickname. How exciting. And Jackson did quite well in various campaigns over the next couple of years until on May 2nd, 1863, he was shot by his own men. He was shot by Confederate pickets in one of the most famous friendly fire accidents in military history and modern history. He first lost his arm to amputation, but he was weakened by his wounds. And the real big killer of wars before penicillin, he got sick, it got infected, and he died of pneumonia 8 days later.
Damn.
Yep. So the Stonewall ended up coming down because his own guys thought he was somebody
We're
else and they
fucking
fucking shot
stupid.
him. Yep.
Wow.
There are a lot of theories as to like why that happened. There are some people that say, "Oh, these men turned on him because he kept losing certain conflicts and kept losing men, and they thought that they were going to die under him." It's not a super popular theory anymore. Some of it is just that because his troops had basically been put through the ringer for several conflicts prior to his death, they turned into what was effectively like a small battalion into like a light brigade. So they looked like scouts, and the Confederate troops weren't expecting Confederate scouts. If they saw
Yeah.
scouts, they would have been Union scouts. So they were just like, kill them, kill the spies. And, too little too late, they shot a bunch of them and he ended up dying. Womp womp. So I want to be careful. If my flippant womp womps were not evidence enough,
Evidence
I
enough. Yep.
I really want to be careful not to subscribe too hard to the great man theory of history when it comes to what I'm about to say, but I think it is very fair to say that Jackson's death did prove to be a pretty big setback for the Confederacy in terms of both their strategic capability, their kind of knowledge capital that they had in terms of military strategists, as well as morale. Again, he was a very liked and revered commander and was basically a form of propaganda. People liked that guy, and he got killed by his own people. So it's not a great look. But after his death, his military exploits managed to develop this legendary quality to them. It is why you, Connor, can remember this guy, even if you don't recall his exact feats, and is a very, very important element in the pseudo historical concept of the lost cause theory, which is a whole bag of worms that I'm not going to get into right now because I don't want to talk about this dead man general. Okay.
Fair enough.
There's so many other people out there that have talked to fucking death about this guy. And yeah, is he interesting? Sure. But frankly, there are smarter people than me who have talked about him with, I'm sure, a lot more nuance and a lot more care. What I found from researching this guy was something that I think you, Connor, will find far more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There is obviously much more that could be said about Thomas Jackson, but from looking into him, there is something very specific that just really made me nerd out and think about the books we're reading. So,
Oh,
Connor, when people talk about the American Civil War, there's one phrase that is usually mentioned. And that is brother fighting brother. You've heard that before?
I have.
And what that really means is it is the ideas of families being ripped apart ideologically from the conflict. Now, during war times, literally there were brothers, men fighting these battles and killing each other. But it represented a far more intimate concept, that being the family unit as a whole was also susceptible to these divisions that led to the bloodshed. And there is something fascinating about Mr. Confederate poster boy Stonewall Jackson and how he is actually a prime example of what could be considered brother fighting sister. So I want to talk about a lesser known historical figure, Laura Jackson. Now,
Oh.
Laura Jackson was born March 27th, 1826. Laura and her older brother, Thomas, spent the few remaining years of their childhood with their paternal uncles because, again, like her older brother, her parents kept fucking dying and guardians kept dying and they kept getting passed around. They had their siblings with them, but eventually their brother, their last brother, Warren, died of tuberculosis in 1841, which meant that only Laura and Thomas remained in their immediate family. All of
Oof.
the rest had died. It was just this brother and sister. As I've said, Thomas ended up entering the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in 1842. And he and Laura actually share memories of a very difficult childhood and corresponded very frequently in the years after Thomas left home. He graduated very high up in his class, joined the US Army, goes off, fights in the Mexican American War, and they still stay in contact with one another. These are very, very close siblings. They are not only bonded by blood, but they are outright trauma bonded. I
Yeah, by
feel like
trauma
that's fair to
and
say.
lack of anyone else.
Correct. Yeah, the rest of their family, again, they have extended family, but in terms of close family, that they're all they have left. And then the Civil War starts. And Thomas famously says, I cannot side with the army that I once fought alongside. I must stand by my state against the tyrannical Lincoln. And so he joins the Confederates. But Laura goes a different route.
Ooh.
In July of 1861, so early on in the Civil War, there is the Battle of Rich Mountain. And what you need to know about that is it established Union control over the area in which Laura lived in Virginia. And
Okay.
because of that, the town that she lived in, Beverly, was occupied by federal Union troops through a lot of the war. Now, a lot of the residents of this area sided with Confederacy, but some ended up leaving when the Union troops arrived. Confederate forces tried to raid the town several times. A couple times were successful, but ultimately this remained a Union choke point, a Union stronghold. And she decides that she is a staunch Unionist.
Let's go.
She has gone against her direct family, her extended family, pretty much all of her community. And the strife that she has doesn't just extend to her family, but also her husband. At 18 years old, she was married to a 42-year-old Jonathan Arnold, turning her into making her name Laura Jackson Arnold. Jonathan was a Southern sympathizer, but Laura was, and I quote, an outspoken Unionist. She nursed the wounded Union soldiers whenever they were nearby in her home. And after every nearby raid or skirmish, she would be seen tending the fallen soldiers, often with, quote, a roll of bandages in one hand and a pot of coffee in the other.
Honestly, she sounds like a proper hero.
She is. And we'll get into that a little bit. There's a writing excerpt found from Laura's son, Thomas Jackson Arnold. She presumably named her son after her brother, which makes this all the more heartbreaking. Thomas Jackson Arnold writes, General McClellan, who is a Union general,
Mhm.
during his brief stay in Beverly, called at our house on at least 2 occasions to see my parents, my mother's brother having been a classmate of his at West Point. Also to see this other person who doesn't really matter, but who'd been permitted to stay at our home as well, awaiting orders from Washington as to the disposition of his case. We generally had in the house some sick federal officers, as did a number of other families in town, the invalids' meals being supplied by the family. Aside from a natural feeling of humanity to aid the sick, it saved the family from being annoyed with the soldiers. Then again, soldiers were entitled to draw several rations in proportion to their rank, and flour, meals, etc., from the commissary at wholesale cost. But families could, in that way, obtain supplies that were difficult to get. So there's a couple things from this. One,
Mhm.
they are actively choosing and allowing to bring soldiers into their home, but they are also getting goods from the soldiers. Soldiers were providing in exchange for aid things from commissary, which might be harder to get because if you recall, the Union was putting a fucking economic stranglehold around the South. This is to say, Laura's sympathies towards the Union were well known and fairly well documented. And in fact, were actually a topic of conversation with some of her contemporaries. Later in the war, in May of 1863, a local attorney ends up writing, Mrs. J. Arnold, sister of General Jackson, went off with the Yankees. Arnold, this is her husband, stayed at home, says he's a good Southern man, that his wife is crazy. But hell, he says, could not govern a Jackson.
You know,
Now,
that feels oddly poignant to our
that
novel.
doesn't that feel pretty poignant? I feel like that's pretty. I saw that quote and was like, that is apt. And even though it's like, oh, their names are Jackson, I just felt the need to draw attention to that. But she is a Spitfire and holds very, very close to her convictions. And she was not only remembered by her contemporaries for helping out these Union soldiers, the troops themselves remember her fondly. One of them actually wrote, her fragile form was almost ubiquitous in the hospitals. And with her
Wow.
own tender hands, she soothed the aching temples of many a dying soldier boy, far away from the loved ones at home. And Colonel Moore of the 28th Ohio Infantry called Mrs. Arnold the most loyal woman in Virginia.
Wow.
She is healer and was a saint to those on the battlefield. She decided to dedicate her life to helping those fight and live to fight and survive the aftermath of the fights for a cause that she held very, very dear, and that is one of justice. And I find that incredibly, incredibly admirable that even though she might not have been wielding a rifle, she was doing what she could where she was with what she had to provide some level of comfort and consistency to, again, I think it's well described, young soldier boys who were far from home.
Yeah.
This
Wow.
is, again, perhaps as far and away different from what her brother is doing as a general of the rebel army. The once close relationship between Laura and her brother was properly destroyed during this war. And even as he became a person of legend, he became General Stonewall Jackson, the preeminent Confederate military leader. Laura still remained a Unionist and became estranged from her sole surviving close family member and all of her distant relatives as well.
Wow. And in the pursuit of doing what she thought was right. That's
It
honest, that's the most impressive.
it's sacrifice. It's a lot of sacrifice.
Mhm.
When Laura learned in 1863 that her brother had died in the war, a cavalry officer, a Union cavalry officer, recorded her reaction in a letter that he was sending home. According to this letter, when she heard of her brother's death, she seemed much depressed, but said she would rather know that he was dead than to have him a leader in the rebel army.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Connor, does that make you think of anybody, any two people in these books that we've been reading?
I'm curious who you're alluding to
Annabeth and
because
Luke.
okay, I thought so. I was curious if you were gonna take it a Percy direction, but I was like, I can really I put my finger on Luke. You make a great point with Annabeth, though. Wow. Yeah, man. I don't think that was intentional at all on Rick's part, but you're so
No,
right.
no,
Ye
it absolutely wasn't intentional.
No, 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 but it does very much fall into that thing that you've often talked about where history kinda echoes, and whether or not we try to avoid it or completely disregard it, it's going to happen, and this is just another poignant place
Mhm.
where it happens yet again. Like,
Yeah.
that is impressive.
We'll talk about it a little bit at the end once I kind of cap off
Mhm. Please
the
continue.
not well known but incredibly important life of this woman. Despite the Arnold family, completely giving themselves over to the Confederacy, the Arnold family is who she married into.
Mhm.
She remained in case you couldn't tell, strong defiance of her husband's viewpoints,
Yeah.
and another scandal occurs. Jonathan and Laura divorce after the war at a time when divorce
Wow.
was exceedingly rare.
Yeah, unheard of, basically.
Now, this led to a lot of spurious claims and mudslinging against Laura, largely saying that she was consorting with the Union troops. Although every actual witness to her and her good deeds swore up and down that there was absolutely nothing improper. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Once again, the most loyal woman in Virginia.
Wow.
After the war ends and the Confederacy becomes relegated to the history books, she leaves and starts her new life. Eventually, in 1897, the Assembled Society of the Army of West Virginia made Laura an honorary member for her patriotism and past efforts on behalf of Union arms, which again is very unprecedented. This is a woman we're talking about.
Yeah.
In 1905, she ended up attending a reunion of the 5th West Virginian Cavalry, which was what occupied her hometown of Beverly after the Battle of Rich Mountain. And the veterans dubbed her Mother of the Regiment due to her efforts as
Wow.
nurse to their injured. And unfortunately, life comes to an end, and due to her not killing a bunch of people and being a military genius, she is forgotten and overshadowed by her far more famous older brother. And it's not known if Laura Jackson ever had remorse over the permanent separation from her brother. At the very least, from what I could find, it was never stated publicly. There isn't a letter that was found saying that she regretted becoming estranged. To all evidence actually pointing to until the very end of her life, she remained a strong unionist and made zero effort to associate with any member of the Jackson family, choosing to stay incredibly firm in her convictions to the very, very end.
Wow. And independent too.
Yes. Oh,
That
yeah. I I mean, again, hell can't even govern a Jackson.
yeah.
This is not only just fascinating because I had no idea that this woman existed. I no clue right before I started looking into Stonewall Jackson. But what a legacy that she left behind. This is the kind of stuff in history that really just gets me fired up and excited. And I love that I'm able to draw some allusions to the book, specifically the strife between, I would say, the brother-sister dynamic of Luke and Annabeth, who had
Yeah.
to suffer and struggle together and bond with intense trauma from a very young age and survive with one another before ultimately getting ripped apart due to irreconcilable ideological differences. And Luke taking up this central role, this mantle of something that Annabeth says defies everything that she believes in.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
has to pay. He has to die. He can't. That's not the Luke that I knew.
Yeah.
For Laura Arnold, I suppose it would be that's not the brother I knew. That's not the Thomas that I knew. That's not who I named my son after. I'd rather he be dead than lead the rebel army.
Dude, that's just so impressive.
Yeah. So that is, I'm closing my leather bound notebook where I keep my history notes. That is what I have for this ramblings from cabin 6.
What an oddly hopeful place to leave it off. You
I
can
think so.
always, even in the spite of such adversity, you can do the right thing.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes respect being earned from family is perhaps not as important as respect being earned from those who need your help, from those who you can give to, from those who are fighting the good fight.
Yeah. I liked that. Thank you for sharing, Jack. I'm really
Of
glad that
course.
you stumbled across that. That's
Me
really cool.
too. Yeah. But
Yeah. Like, what odd, cool chance.
right? I know. I figured you'd like that. And I know we've been recording for quite some time and this is a longer episode. Thank you everybody for sticking in there if you're still listening. For sake of wrapping
Editor
stuff
Connor
up,
is screaming.
I know. Sorry, Editor Connor. For sake of wrapping things up, I really, really enjoyed this chapter and am properly back into like, God, I just want to continue. I
Yep,
want to
good.
see what happens next. I mean, this was such a phenomenal midpoint.
Yeah.
Such a phenomenal midpoint.
Well, hey, the good news is I'm looking at the chapter titles for what comes up next, and we're there now. There's no more transition. There's no more this, that, the other thing. We are moving chapter to chapter through big events. So I'm
Mhm.
really excited to keep going too.
Yeah.
All right, then. I suppose without further ado, we're about to check in at a resort and spa next episode. We'll see you then.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please be sure to leave a review, share with your friends, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. That was really, really cool, Jack. And Scylla and
Right?
Charybdis are just such cool monsters. This was a great, like, post-ep section.
Yeah, dude, I agree. God, yeah, that was great. We have been recording for well over 3 hours.
Over 3 hours.
It doesn't feel like it, at least for me.
I know.
Like, I'm
No, I
really
agree. Other than the
energized.
fact that I'm hungry.
That's fair. I ended up while you're like, "Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff that I'm gonna read." I was like, "Grab a snack, crack a beer." I did exactly that.
Good. There you
I got
go.
up, I had my headphones on, I muted myself, grabbed a drink and started munching on some chips. It was great.
Perfect. Yeah, man. Ah, well, I am now being harassed by a dog,
Mm.
who is telling me that he needs desperate attention. And frankly, this episode is long enough.